Chapter 550. A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. Dragon Saliva was at a loss. Why was Dongfang Huan's behavior so confusing? Why can't I fight openly for the three dimensions like Yuwuji? Was she really doing this for her clansmen? What was the meaning of her death? Moreover, why did she have to seek death? In fact, there was no doubt that the Dragon Saliva could kill Dongfang Jio'er. However, Dongfang Jio'er's true battle prowess was not limited to this. If the Dragon Saliva wanted to kill her, it would have to go all out. However, nothing happened. The Dragon Saliva slash was a venerable divine weapon, but the Sword of Six Paths belonged to the Netherlord. When the two collided, they were completely evenly matched. However, Dongfang Jio'er had broken her own divine weapon. It looked as if the might of the Dragon Saliva was unstoppable. Furthermore, the red lightning split Dongfang Jio'er in half. The sky was filled with golden flowers of blood, like stars in the sky. The scene left the spectating cultivators dumbfounded. At the same time, Dragon Saliva's eyes narrowed. Because what he saw, no one else could see. He knew that Blood Bamboo Mountain had already prepared everything. Thus, the Dragon Saliva chop in his hand did not stop. It directly slashed towards the Blood Bamboo Mountain, and the light it emitted was even more dazzling. Boom, boom, rumble. The faces of the Dongfang people in the Blood Bamboo Mountain suddenly changed. Because none of them could get out. Dongfang Jio'er's seal did not dissipate with her death. They did not know why. Buzz, 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 buzz. The entire Blood Bamboo Mountain within a radius of 300 miles shook. Countless blood bamboos were reduced to blood mist. The Dragon Saliva slash was like a rainbow that pierced through the Blood Bamboo mountain range. In an instant, the earth collapsed, the mountains were destroyed, and all things were annihilated. The Dragon Saliva slash slashed the Blood Bamboo mountain range into two. The entire continent of the chaotic God's central area was shaking. That seemed to be even more powerful than the destruction of the Undying Kingdom. An endless river of blood surged up from the ground, creating huge waves thousands of feet high. Retreat! Huoling Jun let out a fierce shout. Whoosh! The 30,000 chaotic divine realm cultivators retreated as if they had been defeated. Otherwise, they might all die. Even cultivators below the god-bearing realm would be heavily injured by that kind of power. The Dragon Saliva floated in the air like a god, descending to the mortal world. Beneath his feet was a surging river of blood. The entire Blood Bamboo mountain range was collapsing. The sound of a landslide went straight to the sky. The red mountains that stretched for 300 miles had all sunk into the river of blood. At that moment, the slash of the Dragon Saliva changed the entire world. The Blood Bamboo Mountain was completely erased from the chaotic God's central region. A blood-red river appeared on the map of the chaotic God's central area. It drowned everything and sealed everything. From then on, the Eastern Clan was removed from the Pure Land world. At that moment, Dragon Saliva stood in the void with a compassionate expression. Looking at the surging river of blood, he muttered in his heart, "Seal, at least in the Pure Land, no one could see through the Dragon Saliva technique." His red hair fluttered in the wind, but Dragon Saliva's expression remained unchanged. He knew that it was better to wait for Sumo to come back before making a decision. In the depths of his eyes, there was a soul reflected in the river of blood. She would be buried here. Perhaps one day, someone would come to visit her. Who? Dragon Saliva let out a long sigh in her heart. He still could not see through Dongfang Jio'er's choice. She had arranged everything for her people. Dragon Saliva had done its best. It was a perfect technique. To the chaotic god sect's great cause, it was a perfect ending. One slash of the Dragon Saliva wiped out the Eastern Clan. Almost all of the chaotic god realm cultivators saw it. Grand Elder is mighty. The chaotic god sect is undefeatable. The chaotic god sect is undefeatable. Unify the continent. Countless people responded with a tsunami of cheers. He was truly powerful. Inside the chaotic god sect, the god burial realm cultivators that originally had their own thoughts completely submitted. None of them could take a single attack from Dragon Saliva. If they had any other thoughts, the Eastern clan would be a good example. The chaotic god sect unifying the continent was inevitable. Dragon Saliva stood in the void for a long time, watching as the smoke dissipated and the river of blood calmed down. Then, he slowly put the slash back into his body. Cultivators of the chaotic god sect, heed my command. Kill anyone who dares to stop me. Yes. Dragon Saliva's voice echoed across the entire chaotic god central area. Almost every battle zone within the chaotic god central area responded. This battle was more than enough. From now on, the chaotic god sect's army was unstoppable. Almost everyone in the chaotic god central area surrendered. In the battle to unify the chaotic god central area, Dragon Saliva never made a move again. 100 years later, when the entire chaotic god mainland was unified, Dragon Saliva thought that perhaps this was one of the reasons why Dongfang Jiu'er chose to die. She accelerated the process of unifying the chaotic god mainland. Her death shocked the entire chaotic god mainland. At the center of the Pure Land, Tianfu City. In reality, everything that happened on the chaotic god mainland was under Tianfu City's observation. One had to admit, Dragon Saliva's decision not to attack the Undying Nation was one of the basic conditions for him to unify the chaotic god mainland. Because the Undying Nation was directly under Tianfu City's jurisdiction, Dragon Saliva didn't touch the corpseless sex cheese, so Tianfu City didn't make a move. Guilt Garden. Chi Wuhui was comfortably sitting on a rocking chair in the courtyard, resting with her eyes closed. Behind her stood her absolute confidant, Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu waved the jade fan in her hand. Actually, with Chi Wuhui's cultivation, she didn't need it. However, many things were a form of pomp and ceremony. On this day, Chi Wuhui was in a good mood. This was because her Garden of Guilt had once again nurtured a powerful puppet. Young mistress, the entire chaotic god mainland is now under the rule of the chaotic god sect. Xiaoyu smiled. That Dragon Saliva is indeed powerful. Now, the chaotic god mainland is in good order and thriving. Hee. Chi Wuhui squinted and nodded lightly. Dragon Saliva was once a cultivator who almost ascended to the honorable realm. To him, it was a piece of cake. Good job unifying the chaotic god mainland. It saved us trouble in the future. Yes. Xiaoyu nodded with a smile. In the end, they all work for us. Still no news from Sumo? Chi Wuhui asked again. No. Xiaoyu shook her head, then frowned. Young mistress, that Sumo is really powerful. After a while, he will disappear without a trace. 300 years ago, we didn't know where he went. After that, he went to the ancient Shu mainland. However, he disappeared again when we weren't paying attention. In the blink of an eye, another 100 years passed. In the Pure Land, other than the bottom of the 9 underworlds, does he have any other place to hide? Xiaoyu didn't understand. Huh. Nie Wuhui chuckled. Little you, any small world must have its secrets. Sumo isn't an ordinary person. Just let him do as he pleases. The stronger he is, the more advantageous it will be for us. He will definitely appear, because he will definitely come to us. The power of the mind-refreshing soup will grow stronger as he grows stronger. One day, he will kneel in front of me, offer my sister to me, and become my puppet. Senior brother, you can't protect him. Ha ha, ha ha. Chi Wuhui opened his eyes and laughed arrogantly. Chapter 551. The gods of chaos were unified. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, nearly 100 years had passed. In the Pure Land, all the continents were safe and sound. There were still 500 years left until the 1,000-year promise between Sumo and Mu Qingqing. Ancient Shu tomb. Sumo was still sitting cross-legged, safe and motionless. Late stage of world breaking. After 200 years, Sumo's realm was already at the peak of the Pure Land. Now, in the Pure Land, except for a few special people, Sumo's realm was absolutely invincible. However, this was only because he had digested the limited power of the round platform. For now, this realm was already not bad. So, Sumo slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was even deeper. It had been 200 years. He wanted to go to the ancient Shu continent to have a look. Humph! Sumo patted the little white pig who was still sleeping soundly next to him. Humph! The little white pig looked at its master with sleepy eyes. It felt that its master seemed to be a little taller. Then, the little fellow jumped and landed on Sumo's shoulder. Sumo got up and looked at the black round platform under his feet. Then he tried to use his mind. When he looked again, the round platform buzzed and directly shrank to the size of 7 inches, flying into his Dan-si. Then the round platform and his 9-dragon deity platform merged into one. At that moment, Sumo smiled faintly. Songhai had indeed arranged everything, because it meant that he had an inexhaustible cultivation treasure for a period of time. However, when the round platform flew into Sumo's Dan-si, a strange array appeared where the round platform used to be. It had a radius of 3 feet and was also round. Originally, this place was covered by the round platform, so it could not be seen. Now that the round platform was not there, it was revealed. Countless strange runes were like special patterns. However, even with Sumo's knowledge, he had never seen those runes before. Those were not the runes of the 3 realms. Humph! Meanwhile, the little white pig was whining beside him. A hidden rune. Sumo turned to look at the little white pig. This is a teleportation circle? Realm gate? The little white pig nodded and grunted a few more times. Only cultivators at the Sea Destruction realm can enter the array. Sumo smiled bitterly. The Dracophant soul-devouring beast experience in Ezong world should surpass Sumo's. The little white pig had inherited part of the memories of the Dragon Elephant Soul Eater beast, so it should not be wrong. Sumo looked at the array. Actually, he was very curious. What kind of world was this array connected to? Unfortunately, Songhai hadn't told him all those years ago. However, this realm gate would definitely be useful. Otherwise, there was no way he would have appeared in the tomb, let alone being pressed under the black platform. Carefully looking at those runes, Sumo had a rough idea of what was going on, and then he spread out his spiritual consciousness. When he first entered the tomb, he couldn't spread out his spiritual consciousness at all. Now, he could see everything in the tomb clearly. Sumo understood that it was not because of his realm, but because he had taken the black platform back into his body. The 9 Dao gates were still the same. Their power did not disappear. In fact, there were arrays in the 9 tunnels. However, when Sumo entered the cave, he did not encounter any obstacles, and there was nothing else in the entire tomb. Now, the most valuable thing in the tomb was probably that realm gate. Sumo thought for a while and walked out of the tomb through the demon gate. 200 years ago, Sumo came out of seclusion with the late stage of deciphering. He calmly entered and calmly came out. The cultivators of Xianmeng had always been guarding. As soon as Sumo came out, cultivators immediately sent the news back to the ancient Shu's immortal peak. At the same time, they immediately came to greet Sumo. However, these deities' tribulation realm cultivators could not see Sumo's realm at all. Even if Sumo did not release her pressure, they could still feel the endless pressure. After a while, in the void, there were many figures. 7 or 8 cultivators showed up. They were none other than Yu Wuji, Long Wansheng, and the others who had accompanied Sumo to this place. Behind them, there were Zhong Yulin, Hua Jianlan, Long Yu, and Long Ge. Sumo, you finally came out. Yu Wuji was very excited. In the past 200 years, she had been waiting for Sumo to come out. Her realm was already the great completion of the sacred burial realm. She could break through at any time. However, she did not expect that Sumo had already reached the late stage of breaking realm. The late stage of breaking realm had a special meaning for the cultivators of the Pure Land, because it meant that they could break the realm and go to the small world outside of the Pure Land. It should be said that it was a realm that Yu Wuji longed for. That way, she could go to a wider space to find Azure Demon. Although Yu Wuji's cultivation speed was faster than the entire ancient Shu, compared to Sumo, it was still nothing. Alliance Leader Yu, Alliance Leader Long. Sumo bowed to the two of them and smiled. Long Wansheng was shocked. He could not believe that in just 200 years, Sumo had achieved 2 levels in the breaking realm. It should be known that among the people who had come, only Yuwuji had increased a few levels. In the past 200 years, they had not increased at all. Increasing above the breaking realm was something that many cultivators could not achieve in tens of thousands of years. Monster. It was beyond Long Wanqing's understanding. Among the cultivators he knew, Yuwuji was already a talented and invincible existence. Sumo could not believe it. City Master Su, you are really a genius. Long Wanqiang complimented sincerely. The few people behind them were even more shocked than they were. That day, when Sumo entered the tomb, it shocked the ancient Shu continent. Now that Sumo had come out of seclusion, he crushed everyone else. Yuwuji's mouth curved under the veil. It looked like the ancient Shu continent would soon be used by the power of the three realms. Everyone greeted each other and returned to the ancient Shu's God Peak's Immortals Inquiry Hall. The leader who was in charge of Xianming was from the Jiang family, one of the 7 undying families in the ancient Shu. Jiang Yuntian, the leader of the Jiang family, was a cultivator in the later stage of the God-burying realm. He was an old man who did not have much time left in his life. In the past 100 years, although he was in charge, most of the things were handled by Yuwuji and Long Wanqiang. The other 2 leaders were still in seclusion. The news that Sumo had come out and reached the later stage of the breaking realm had already spread to the ancient Shu's God Peak. Therefore, Jiang Yuntian had already led everyone to wait outside the Immortals Inquiry Hall. The late stage of the breaking realm was something that Xianming did not have yet. When Sumo and the others returned, they inevitably greeted each other. Then, everyone entered the hall and sat down. Jiang Yuntian went straight to the point and said with a smile, City Master Su, this trip to the tomb, you have been in seclusion for 200 years, and you have gained a lot. It's all thanks to Xianming. Sumo said with a smile, there is indeed some special inheritance in the tomb, which is suitable for me. Coincidentally, I was able to go one step further. Of course, Sumo could not say everything clearly. As for Yuwuji, he would tell him in private. Special inheritance? The people of Xianming were all surprised. As cultivators, they all understood that inheritance was more difficult to find than magic treasures and celestial medicines. City Master Su, a great opportunity, Jiang Yuntian said. Then, what is City Master Su planning to do next? Sumo smiled. Alliance Master Jiang. Sumo is a person who knows how to repay kindness. In the beginning, if Alliance Master you did not find me, how could I have this opportunity? So, I will repay Xianming. Oh, Jiang Yuntian laughed. Of course, he wanted Sumo to repay Xianming. However, he did not expect Sumo to say it so directly. City Master Su, how will you repay Xianming? Yuwuji asked with a smile. Of course, it is not enough. Sumo looked at the 3 alliance masters of Xianming. I want to use the 3 South families to pay tribute to Xianming. What do you think? Wow. This sentence caused the entire Immortals Inquiry Hall to be in an uproar. The 3 South families paying tribute was the true unification of ancient Shu. Chapter 552. Sanan submit to Xianming. These words shocked all the Xianming cultivators. Jiang Yuntian was the old alliance leader of Xianming. When he heard those words, he was shocked. City Lord Su, is this true? Alliance leader Jiang, Sumo will do what she says. Sumo said with a smile. Good. Jiang Yuntian looked around and couldn't help but laugh, then sighed. Unifying the Sanan is actually the long-cherished wish of my Xianming successive alliance leaders for millions of years. However, the Sanan family is entrenched in the south, and it's not out of line, and there are many people, so it's not easy to submit. I have my ways, Sumo said. City Lord Su, if you can really make the Sanan submit, I, Xianming, will fully support you. But to be honest, we don't want the people of the ancient Shu continent to be in misery and suffering. If that's the case, we don't need to unify. Jiang Yuntian sighed. Alliance leader Jiang, don't worry. Sumo nodded again and smiled. Doesn't the ancient Shu continent recognize the brave, the wise, the benevolent, and the strong? I will use Xianming's method to make the Sandnan sincerely submit. That's good. Jiang Yuntian said, City Lord Su, what kind of support do you need? Just say it. I, Xianming, will fully support you. Thank you, Alliance Leader Jiang. Sumo said, I only need a few cultivators from Xianming to follow me to the Sandnan family. I don't need anything else for the time being. City Lord Su, who does he need to accompany? Even if I have to go, it's fine. Jiang Yuntian said, City Lord Jiang, just stay in the Immortal Inquiry Palace. Sumo smiled, then looked at Xianming and the others. However, since City Lord Jiang agrees, then I'll trouble Alliance Leader Yu, Alliance Leader Long, and their followers to accompany me. I don't know if Alliance Leader Jiang and the other two Alliance leaders agree. Jiang Yuntian did not say anything. Instead, he looked at Yu Wuji and Long Wancheng. Of course, Yu Wuji and Long Wancheng would not refuse. If they could recover the Sandnan, it would be a great contribution. That would definitely solidify their position as the Alliance leader in the future. No problem. Yu Wuji and Long Wancheng replied with a smile. For Xianming, we will not shirk our duty. All right. Jiang Yuntian smiled and nodded. City Lord Su, then we'll do as you say. When do you plan to leave? There's no time to lose. We can leave tomorrow, Sumo said. Everyone nodded. Then, it was naturally Jiang Yuntian's turn to host a banquet for Sumo. Everyone enjoyed the immortal wine and spiritual food. Inside the Immortal Inquiry Hall, the guests and hosts enjoyed themselves to the fullest. The next day, Jiang Yuntian personally sent Sumo and the others off. Sumo, Yu Wuji, Long Wancheng, Zhong Yulin, Hua Jianlan, Long Yu, and Long Ge. There were 7 of them. At the foot of the ancient Shu Mountain, there was a teleporter that led to the southern area. Everyone said their goodbyes. Sumo and the others went to the southern area of the ancient Shu. The Sandnan families were the Cold Mountain family, the Red Desert Gu family, and the Sky Lake Chu family. The area they controlled was 1/5 of the southern area. The Sandnan families were all immortal families. According to the geography of Shunan, the Sky Lake Chu family was in the middle, the Cold Mountain family was in the east, and the Red Desert Gu family was in the west. The power of the 3 families was about the same, but each family was like the 7 immortal families of Xianming. In their families, there were break-world monsters. That was why they were able to occupy Shu, Nan, and form a balance with Xianming. Power. It was always the first factor. For millions of years, there were Xianming leaders with great talent. They all had the idea of recovering the Sandnan and unifying the ancient Shu. But in the end, they all failed. In fact, in the end, the Sandnan families were very strong. In a situation where both sides were injured, Xianming did not have the ability to completely suppress the other side, and there was no elite that could suppress everything. Yu Wuji's idea was to unify the ancient Shu. In fact, if Sumo did not come, she could do it in time. But it might not be as good as the 1,000-year agreement with Underworld City. Whoosh! They arrived at the teleporter's destination. The mist dissipated. Sumo and the others stepped out of the teleporter. This time, the teleporter was at the southernmost end of the ancient Shu Xianming's territory. This was also the longest distance that the teleporter under the ancient Shu mountain could teleport. However, it was still 300,000 miles away from the important area of the Sandnan families. They were all cultivators above the deity burying level, so this distance was nothing. In the void, Sumo looked at the south of the ancient Shu and felt that the southern Shu was vast and there were countless beautiful sceneries. The land of the Sandnan is full of treasures. Sumo said, Of course. Yu Wuji nodded beside her. The cultivation resources of the Sandnan are actually very rich. Otherwise, how could they compete with Xianming? Moreover, some cultivation resources can only be found in the Sandnan in the whole ancient Shu continent. For example, the red sand of the ancient Shu. That is an important ingredient needed for many elixirs, but the best and purest red sand of the ancient Shu is in the Sandnan. To be more precise, it is in the hands of the Sandnan Gu family, Long Wancheng said. In fact, if the whole ancient Shu is unified, the cultivation resources will be more balanced. That way, cultivation resources would be more evenly distributed, and more high-level cultivators would be nurtured. The strength of the ancient Shu will be even more powerful. That is a good thing for Xianming and the San'an. Hearing this, Sumo nodded thoughtfully. Sumo, let's go to the Gu family first, Yu Wuji said with a smile. That day, you were in seclusion. The girl you saved in the Gu family told me before she left that you came out of seclusion and that you must send her a message. She wants to visit you. She said that she has something to ask you. Now that we are here in person, it saves her the trouble of making a trip. Oh, Sumo said with a smile. That's good. Let's use the Gu family as a breakthrough point. If the Gu family can be loosened, it will not be difficult for the other two families to submit. Yes, Yu Wuji nodded. Before this, Sumo had secretly told Yu Wuji about her experience in the tomb. To Yu Wuji, although there was no news of the Azure Fiend, it was a good thing that Sumo had regained all her memories. The vast ocean enters the mortal. Yu Wuji was extremely puzzled and even doubtful about it. The people of the vast ocean would not really make such a choice. The sun, moon, and stars rose from the primordial era, while the vast ocean ancient flow guarded the heaven and earth. Everyone in the vast ocean ancient flow once carried the three realms on their shoulders. The vast ocean ancient flow was born for the three realms. Why would the immortal of the vast ocean ancient flow choose to enter the mortal world? As for the realm lotus, Yu Wuji was extremely shocked. It was also beyond her understanding. The three realms were the lotus, and the cultivators were like dust. Fortunately, Yu Wuji's original intention would not change, be it the three realms or the hidden realms. Of course, she wanted to restore the galaxy, but more importantly, she wanted to find the Azure Fiend. As long as the Azure Fiend was there, she could go anywhere. Therefore, Yu Wuji did not have much of a reaction. Sumo and the others did not say anything else. Then they cast their spells and rode their artifacts to the Gu family in the Red Desert. Chapter 553. 300,000 miles for Sumo and the others. It was only half a day's journey. Soon, they entered the territory of the Red Desert Gu family. Looking down from the void, Sumo and the others could see it clearly. The color of the land of the ancient Shu had begun to gradually change. It gradually changed from light red to dark red, and the further south, the brighter the color. The territory of the Gu family was really like a red desert, boundless. However, it was not barren, but full of spiritual energy. The Red Desert was a treasure land on the ancient Shu continent. Sumo, look at this land. Other than the color, doesn't it look like the cloud desert of the desolate sea? Yu Wuji stepped on the white sand, sighed, and transmitted his voice to Sumo. Indeed, Sumo nodded lightly, and then replied, Miss you, I will definitely help you find my Azure Demon, so that you can reunite. Thank you. Yu Wuji thanked her solemnly. Thinking of the cloud desert, Yu Wuji's gaze became a little distant. When could he see the Azure Demon again? When could he reforge the galaxy? The road must be very long. Long Wansheng and the others were also discussing along the way. However, they were talking about the secrets of the ancient Shu, the old news of the San'an, and so on. Suemo didn't interrupt, but listened attentively to see if there was anything valuable. Above the Red Desert, there were occasionally San'an cultivators flying over, but no one paid much attention to them. After all, they had all restrained their aura. Alliance Master, we are still 7,000 miles away from the Gu family. Hua Jianlan, who was behind Yu Wuji, reminded. Yu Wuji nodded. Then send a message to that Miss Gu Yu. Say that City Lord Su and our Xianming representative have come to visit the Gu family. Yes, Hua Jianlan responded. Looking again, she formed a seal with both hands, and the power of the burial god spread out. Then, a small array appeared directly in front of her. A jade slip fell straight into the array and disappeared instantly. It was a special communication jade slip between Xianming and the San'an family. Soon, the Gu family would receive the message. Sumo and the others continued forward. 3,000 miles. 3,000 miles away from the Gu family, Sumo and the others stopped in their tracks. This was because there were already more than 10 cultivators in front of them. The leader was a middle-aged cultivator with an imposing appearance and an extraordinary temperament. Early stage break world. This cultivator's cultivation realm was extremely high. It was important to know that in the entire old Shu continent, there were only a few break world cultivators. They were very few. It seemed that the Gu family attached great importance to the arrival of Sumo and the others. Behind the break world class were the 5 burial gods and 7 undying. Of the 5 burial gods, one was at the peak stage and one was at the late stage. They were Gu Yu and Gu Xing. The other 2 were male cultivators, both of whom were god-burying mid-stage. 7 undead realm experts. All of them were at the great circle of the undead realm. Such a lineup could be described as luxurious. In Xianmeng, aside from the 7 immortal families, no other family could send such a lineup. Alliance Leader Yu, Alliance Leader Long, it's been a long time. The middle-aged cultivator, who was the leader, clasped his fists at Yu Wuji, Long Wancheng, and the others. At the same time, his heart was slightly moved. Yu Wuji's cultivation realm was at the peak stage of the burial god, and it was the kind that could break through at any time. It was important to know that it had only been 300 years since the last time he saw Yu Wuji. Back then, Yu Wuji had not completely reached the god-burying mid-stage. Such a cultivation speed could be described as godlike. Xianmeng had such a leader, which was like adding wings to a tiger. At the same time, when he looked at Suimo again, he sucked in a breath of cold air. Late-stage break world. Such a realm could completely crush the ancient Shu continent. As far as he knew, even the strongest elder in Xianmeng was only at the god-burying mid-stage. Neither Xianmeng nor Sannan had a god-burying late-stage break world cultivator. The middle-aged cultivator could not help but turn his head slightly to look at Gu Xing and Gu Yu next to him. When they came back from the ancient Shu, they said that Sumo was only at the god-burying early stage. That was why he came out today to greet her. He did not want to damage the Gu family's reputation. However, he did not expect that he would be overshadowed by her. At this time, Gu Xing and Gu Yu were far more shocked than he was. In 200 years, she had gone from the god-burying early stage to the god-burying late stage. That was simply unimaginable. The 2 sisters could hardly believe their eyes. They did not even have time to hide their astonishment. It was written all over their faces. What kind of cultivator was Sumo? A reincarnator of the 3 realms. Gu Yu sighed in her heart. Brother Gu, it's been a long time. At this time, Yu Wuji and Long Wancheng saluted at the same time. The relationship between Sannan and Xianmeng had always been very subtle. It could be said that they were both enemies and friends. Therefore, the leaders of Xianmeng and the leaders of the Sannan family often called each other brother, regardless of their cultivation. In this way, everyone was easy to talk to. The middle-aged man was the second most powerful person in the Gu family. His name was Gu Yazi. In the entire Gu family, there were only 2 world-breaking cultivators. One of them was the current leader of the Gu family, Gu Shengzi, who was in the god-burying middle stage. Gu Yazi was Gu Shengzi's younger brother. In the past, the twins of the Gu family had appeared out of nowhere and shocked the ancient Shu. Now, they were the superclass ancient Shu's powerful cultivators. Gu Xing and Gu Yu were Gu Shengzi's daughters. Yu Wuji smiled and said, "We, Xianmeng, are visiting you to disturb your cultivation." Haha, Alliance Master Yu is joking. Gu Yazi also smiled and said, "Usually, there are many mundane things. How can I talk about cultivation? Even if I cultivate, I'm afraid I can't compare with Alliance Master Yu's rapid progress. The Gu family is honored to have you all come to visit. This fellow Taoist is City Lord Su, right? Yes, this is City Lord Su of the chaotic God continent." Yu Wuji introduced. "City Lord Su, I would like to thank you for saving my 2 nieces that day." Gu Yazi bowed deeply to Sumo with sincerity. No, you are too polite, Gu Shengzi." Sumo bowed back. Then, Gu Xing and Gu Yu stepped forward and greeted Sumo again. They chatted for a while, and then Gu Yazi led the crowd to the Gu family. The Gu family of the Red Desert lived in the center of the Red Desert. There was a city here, The entire city was completely made of special red sand and immortal spells. Later on, it was named Red City. It had a radius of 300 miles, and it was magnificent and large. This Red City was a priceless treasure. In the entire Red Desert, 1/3 of the cultivators were concentrated in Red City to cultivate. In addition to the Gu family, there were other cultivators from San'an. In the easternmost part of Red City, there was a villa called the Gu family villa. That was the old residence of the Gu family. Gu Yazi led Sumo and the others directly to the Gu family villa. In fact, along the way, Sumo and the others had been observing carefully. The entire Red City seemed to be normal, but it was tense on the inside. In the entire Red City, in addition to a few burial gods, there were many undying cultivators in the dark. It could be said that there was a sentry every 10 steps. Sumo couldn't help but laugh in his heart. If he wanted to attack Red City, the Gu family couldn't stop him at all. He could destroy the entire Gu family alone. The undying cultivators weren't even qualified to be cannon fodder. However, Sumo didn't intend to do that. Gather your heart and submit. That was what Sumo wanted. This time, he wanted to subdue the Gu family and then affect the entire San'an. Chapter 554. The Gu family villa was very old. Gu Yazi led Sumo and the others to the villa's main hall. The leader of the Gu family, Gu Shengzi, was in seclusion, so he did not come out to meet the guests. In the Gu family's main hall, everyone sat down. Gu Yazi ordered people to serve tea. He smiled and asked, "Two leaders and Master Su have come all the way here. What brings you here?" "Ha!" Yu Wuji replied. "In fact, we are here with Master Su. We want to see Lady Guyu." "That is because Lady Guyu wants to see Master Su again." "Oh." Gu Yazi nodded. He looked at Guyu and smiled. You have a lot of face. You were able to make Xianming's 2 leaders and Master Su come." In fact, Gu had already told Gu Yazi what she was thinking. Now, Gu Yazi was saying this to use Guyu's name. That way, there would be more room for discussion. Gu did not understand how a non-leader of the Gu family could invite Xianming's 2 leaders and a breakworld cultivator. This time, Sumo and the others did not come to the Gu family just to see Guyu. Xianming must have come to San'an for something. It was just that no one said it out loud. "Second uncle, you must be joking." Guyu smiled. "You is just using the Gu family's face." Guyu looked at Sumo and smiled. "Elder Su, I want to see you because I have something to ask of you." "Oh." Sumo smiled. "Lady Guyu, just tell me what you need. As long as this Su can help, I will definitely do my best." "Thank you. If Elder Su is here, I would like to ask you to see someone," Guyu said. "Who is it?" Sumo was slightly taken aback. He did not know anyone from the Gu family. "When I see him, Elder Su will know." Guyu smiled. She looked at Gu Yazi and said, "Second uncle, please give me an order." Gu Yazi looked at Guyu and hesitated for a moment before nodding. Then, he took out a token and handed it over to Guyu. Guyu took the token and said to Sumo and the others, "Forgive me for my rudeness, but this person can only be seen by Senior Su, Alliance Leader Yu, and Alliance Leader Long. This is already the greatest sincerity of my Gu family." Guyu's words were worth pondering. Yu Wuji and Long Wancheng could not help but look at each other. It seemed like the Gu family had made some preparations for the purpose of their visit. "Okay." Yu Wuji nodded. "Please follow me." Guyu didn't say anything more and directly led the way. Sumo, Yu Wuji, and Long Wancheng bid farewell to Gu Yazi and followed after Guyu. As for the Gu family, only Gu Xing followed them out. The rest of Xianming's group was naturally accompanied by Gu Yazi and the others. Sumo and the others had some doubts in their hearts. Judging from the situation when Gu Yazi gave Guyu the token just now, the person Guyu wanted them to see was by no means an ordinary person. Guyu and Gu Xing walked in front, and Sumo and the other 2 followed behind. There was no one else. After leaving the main hall, they walked through 2 courtyards. The route was a little complicated. Sumo, Yu Wuji, and Long Wancheng were all experts in formations. They immediately saw that they were walking through a strange formation. This formation was set up in the Gu family villa, and it was an independent formation. Every blade of grass, every tree, every floor, and every pavilion was a magic weapon for setting up a formation. Finally, Guyu brought them to a courtyard where they stopped. There was nothing in the courtyard. It was empty, and even the corners were full of weeds. It seemed to be an abandoned courtyard. However, the moment Guyu, Sumo, and the others entered the courtyard, two figures appeared silently in the courtyard. They were two old men in red robes. Both of them had white hair and wrinkles. A man and a woman. It was unknown how old they were, but they were both in the early stage of Break World. Seeing the two of them, Sumo, Yuwuji, and Long Wansheng were shocked. Aside from the two family leaders, the Gu family also had Break World cultivators? For Break World cultivators, the power of the Gu family could not be underestimated. The foundation of the Sanan family was extraordinary. Gu Yu and Gu Xing quickly bowed and said, "Greetings, ancestors. What are you doing here? This is the Gu family's forbidden area." Among them, the white-haired old woman's voice was hoarse. It was as if she had not spoken for a long time. Her tone was very stiff. The other white-haired old man raised his head and looked at Sumo and the others. His eyes froze. Later stage of Break World. Obviously, Sumo's realm surprised him. That was the highest realm of the ancient Shu continent. "Ancestors, we were sent by the second family leader," Guyu answered carefully. "These people want to see my brother," Guyu replied cautiously. At the same time, she took out the token that Gu Yazi had given her. The two old men glanced at the token at the same time, but their eyes were a little dim. "What does it matter if we see him or not?" The white-haired old woman coldly said, "That animal's disease cannot be cured. Over the years, how many fairy doctors have come? Which one of them did not return without any success?" "Ancestors, we have to try," Guyu said. "If he is cured, it will save you from having to guard this place year after year." "Huh?" The white-haired old woman coldly laughed. "It is nothing. The Gu family has a bastard like him. We two old bones do not have much lifespan left. It does not matter if we die with him." Guyu felt awkward. "Whatever. It is good to see him." The white-haired old man sighed. "Otherwise, one day, we will not be able to suppress him. The Gu family will most likely be killed by him. Let's try everything we can." The white-haired old woman did not say anything. Sumo, Yuwuji, and Long Wansheng heard their conversation. Guyu's brother? Animal? Bastard? What was going on? However, the two old men did not speak anymore and disappeared. Of course, they did not leave the courtyard. However, even Sumo could not completely capture their auras. Guyu took a few steps forward. In the center of the courtyard, there was a circular open space. The open space was covered with strange runes. In the middle, there was a groove. Guyu buckled the token into the groove in the open space and formed a seal with both hands. Whoosh! Following Guyu's seal, a hole with a radius of 1 zhang appeared in the middle of the courtyard. "Everyone, please follow me." Guyu was in front and Gu Xing was behind. Sumo and the others followed. Once inside, they did not know how deep it was. However, the hole was at least hundreds of zhang deep. This seemed to be a dungeon. At this time, Su Mo and the others could vaguely hear the sound of heavy and hurried breathing. Then, they landed in the deepest part. Guyu changed direction and walked for a while. Zigzagging. There were all kinds of arrays set up in this cave, and they were equally complicated and exquisite. What kind of people were imprisoned here? There were two great realm-breaking guardians in such a great array. Sumo, Yuwuji, and Long Wansheng were curious. At this moment, an extremely wide space appeared in front of them. That was the end of the dungeon. A light curtain of hundreds of zhang blocked everything. Layers of flowing runes floated in the void. Behind the light screen, heavy breathing sounds could be heard. It did not sound like human breathing, but like a dragon sleeping soundly. Sumo could not help but frown. Chapter 555. A Dragon Snoring? Sumo, Yuwuji, and Long Wansheng were all slightly stunned. Was that a human or a dragon behind the light curtain? At this time, Guyu and Gu Xing stood in front of the light curtain and made hand seals at the same time. A spell was cast, and the light curtain slowly opened more than 10 feet wide, but there were still light paths crisscrossing in the middle. Behind the light curtain, there was a big hole. Inside it, countless golden runes were flowing. Each rune contained the power to break the boundary. For the cultivators of the ancient Shu continent, the sealing power in this cave could be regarded as an extreme existence. And in that cave, there was a cultivator in cyan sitting cross-legged. Unfortunately, his back was facing the entrance of the cave. None of Sumo and the others could see his face clearly. And the most shocking thing was that there were 8 five-clawed dragon souls of different colors around his body. Those dragon souls were tossing up and down, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. They all looked irritable and uneasy, but they couldn't break free. Breathe in. The 8 dragon souls actually appeared and disappeared with the cyan-clothed cultivators breathing. With one breath, the 8 dragon souls entered and exited the cyan-clothed cultivator's body one after another. That was an extremely special scene. However, seeing the 8 dragon souls, Sumo and Yu Wuji couldn't help but look at each other. They saw a touch of surprise in each other's eyes. Senior Su, Alliance Master Yu, Alliance Master Long. This cultivator is my brother. Guyu's voice was a little dry. Why is he sealed here? What's going on? Sumo asked. Guyu sighed. To tell you the truth, this is a secret of our Gu family, and we won't easily tell outsiders. But City Lord Su, you know my master, who is a reincarnator of the 3 realms. That's why I brought you here. Because my master said that my brother is also a reincarnator of the 3 realms. However, he can't complete the true awakening of himself. He's been struggling. Back then, my master once came here. Unfortunately, she said that she couldn't cure my brother, because she doesn't have the power of the 3 realms. Sumo, Yu Wuji, and Long Wancheng listened attentively without interrupting. Originally, I had 9 elder brothers. Guyu let out a long sigh. They were the children of my father and second uncle. Their ages were about the same, and each of them was extremely talented and cultivated extremely quickly. But other than my 9th brother, the other 8 brothers are all deaf and mute. Deaf and mute. Sumo and the other 2 were stunned. This was because such a situation didn't exist among cultivators. It was impossible for cultivators to be truly deaf and mute. Back then, the mute masters of the Whitebone continent were called mute masters because they cultivated the silent meditation. It's not that they don't want to speak, it's that they really can't hear or speak. Guyu understood what Sumo and the others were thinking. But they can communicate with each other, and they cultivate a strange cultivation method that seems to be innate. As for the Gu family's Dharma spells, they are all insignificant skills to them. They can learn them as soon as they learn it. My 9th brother is even more of a genius. Although he's the youngest, he's like the leader of my other brothers. His cultivation is also the highest among them. In just a few thousand years, they all broke through to the red dust realm. Everything about them began to converge, and even their appearances became more or less the same. The accident happened after they entered the divine burial realm. My eldest brother was the last to enter the divine burial realm, 100 years later than my second brother. On the night that my eldest brother entered the divine burial realm, a tragedy occurred in the Gu family. At this point, Guyu raised an eyebrow. She had witnessed everything that had happened that year. It could be said to be an unbearable memory. My 9th brother suddenly went berserk uncontrollably. That night, he killed and injured many of his clansmen. Blood flowed like a river. In the end, Brother Gio actually killed all 8 of my brothers. He seemed to have gone completely mad at the time. Usually, my 9th brother is gentle, kind, wise, and resourceful. He's not that kind of person at all, Guyu said with tears in her eyes. No one knows what happened. In the end, the 2 ancestors of the clan sacrificed their lifespan and used the blood sacrifice method to subdue 9th brother. For some reason, my 8 brothers seem to have turned into dragon souls and have been surrounding 9th brother. 9th brother seemed to want to devour them. My father speculated that the 9 brothers should have been one. However, they were born one after another and couldn't merge successfully. Ninth brother has been sealed here for 30,000 years. Every 900 years, he would go berserk, but he would be suppressed by the blood sacrifice array. His flesh would be badly mutilated and then restored. Now he's sleeping. Every 81 days, he will wake up. After 9 days, he will sleep again. I don't know how long this cycle will take. After saying that, Gu Yu sighed heavily. Beside her, Gu Xing also looked gloomy. Sumo and the other two frowned slightly when they heard that. However, the three of them had completely different thoughts. Long Wancheng felt that everything was a little unbelievable, while Sumo and Yuwuji were a little emotional. Sumo, is it him? Yuwuji asked through voice transmission. It should be. Sumo sighed in her heart. The divine dragon, 9 transformations. He's the only existence like that in the 3 realms. They already knew what was going on with the cultivator in front of them. City Lord Su, do you have a way? After saying everything, Guyu looked at Sumo hopefully. Sumo pondered for a moment and said, I can try. However, I have to wait for him to wake up. Before that, I have to confirm something. Senior Su, do you have the origin energy of the 3 realms? Guyu asked. Almost. Sumo smiled. Although Sumo did not give a clear answer, everyone present could tell that Sumo was very confident. Because at their level of cultivation, empty words and boasting were getting fewer and fewer. No matter what, Guyu bowed deeply. Guyu thanked Senior Su first. According to the usual situation, he will wake up in 6 hours. However, his divine consciousness may not be awake. Guyu looked at the back of the cultivator in green in the cave abode with eyes full of respect and love. In fact, after that night, many people in the Gu family said that her 9th brother was a demon. However, only Guyu respected her 9th brother the most. Back then, the relationship between the siblings was also the best. For 30,000 years, Guyu had been searching for a way to save her brother and even looked for the so-called reincarnator of the 3 realms. Miss Guyu. Yuwuji looked at Guyu and smiled faintly. At this moment, Yuwuji knew that it was time for her to speak. Previously, I've always been curious as to why the Gu family doesn't have a direct male cultivator in this generation. After hearing what you said, I finally understood. I want to ask if City Lord Su can cure your brother's illness. Then, how will the Gu family thank us? Hee. Guyu turned to look at Yuwuji. Alliance Master you. I think you came this time because you have a big request. Guyu, can't decide anything else. However, I can tell you this. My 9th brother is the only direct descendant of the Gu family. His value to the Gu family is immeasurable. In a sense, is the Gu family. As for other things, I think you're all smart people. You need to talk to my father and second uncle. After hearing that, Yuwuji looked at Sumo and Long Wancheng, then nodded lightly. Chapter 556. Guyu's words were very clear. Sumo, Yuwuji, and Long Wancheng naturally understood. Once they saved the only direct descendant of the Gu family, there would be room for negotiation. Thank you, Miss Guyu. Sumo said, Senior Su, you saved my life. Guyu can't repay you, but the elders of the family still need to make decisions. Guyu smiled faintly. Guyu can't do anything. Don't worry, Miss Guyu. We know what we're doing and won't make things difficult for you, Sumo said. Guyu nodded, then asked, Senior Su, I want to ask if you and my master are old friends? Oh, Sumo couldn't help but smile. Of course we are. In fact, Sumo was already prepared for Guyu to ask about Murong Haiqing. This time, he came to San'an for 2 purposes. One was to recover San'an, and the other was to ask about Murong Haiqing. Murong Haiqing could transmigrate, but what about Lungyu? Back in the Star River realm, the 2 of them should have been together. Then, Senior Su, can you tell me about my master? Guyu's eyes lit up slightly. To her, Murong Haiqing was like a god. Ha! Sumo laughed. What do you want to know? Also, how did you meet her and become her disciple? Meeting Master was a coincidence. Guyu's eyes showed a look of reminiscence. In fact, that was tens of thousands of years ago, but it was still vivid in Guyu's mind. The year, I was just a small cultivator in the core formation realm. However, I boldly went to Sand and Sky Lake to train alone. I didn't expect that my illness would act up. Later, I found out that it was not an illness, but the awakening of my lunar physique. So, I hurried back to the Red Desert. However, as soon as I arrived at the edge of the Red Desert, I lost consciousness. When I woke up, Master was by my side. She was still dressed in white and surrounded by mist. Sumo asked, That's right. Guyu said, even if Master doesn't release her aura, her body carries a hazy, cold aura. Master said that she has the Nining body. Sumo nodded. The Nining body was unique in the three realms. That was Murong Haiqing. There was no mistaking it. It's a pity that my extreming body can only learn a little of her immortal arts. Guyu sighed. Master said that my aptitude is average. Sumo couldn't help but laugh. Actually, the extreming body is definitely a first-class body. However, in the eyes of a Blue Sea descendant, this was indeed considered ordinary. Which one of them isn't a peerless existence that can suppress an entire generation? Miss Guyu, in the future, if you have the chance to meet the other Blue Sea descendants, you will be able to meet them. I'm afraid you'll discover that your master might be the weakest one. Blue Sea descendant? The weakest one? Guyu asked incredulously. City Lord Su is right. Yu Wuji let out a long sigh. The sun, moon, and stars rise from the primordial era, while the ancient vast ocean subdues the profound universe. Murong Haiqing is also an outstanding talent in the three realms. To the current Pure Land, she can destroy it with a flip of her hand. However, compared to the other descendants of the ancient vast ocean, she is indeed a bit weaker. Guyu sucked in a breath of cold air. Even now, she didn't know what her master's realm was. However, she knew that her master was an existence that far surpassed the Pure Land. What kind of place is the Three Realms Galaxy? Guyu asked. The Three Realms Galaxy doesn't belong to Izong. It's another world, similar to Izong, Sumo said solemnly. However, it's already been destroyed. The ancient vast ocean is a sect of the Three Realms? Sumo nodded. You can say that. However, they're probably in existence above all the other sections. They're the guardians of the Three Realms. Guardians? Guyu's eyes flashed with a strange look. Although she was only a soul burial cultivator, she also understood what it meant to be a guardian of a realm. What about you, Senior? Guyu looked at Sumo. Me? Sumo was slightly taken aback. That question didn't seem to be easy to answer. He is the Three Realms, Yu Wuji said with a smile. Yu Wuji said this half-jokingly, but in fact, he was not wrong. Huh. Sumo shook her head and then said with a smile, I can't say that I'm the Three Realms. I'm just a soul of the Three Realms. Both of them were right. However, Guyu, Guxing, and Long Wancheng were all pondering the deeper meaning behind those two sentences. Especially Long Wancheng, who was already extremely shocked. Sumo and Yu Wuji didn't avoid him. In fact, he knew that it was a kind of trust, and this kind of trust actually needed to be reciprocated. When Sumo invited him to come to Sannan with her, it was in fact destined that the Long family had already sided with Sumo. Such a person was definitely worth relying on. If Sumo could really make Sannan submit, then the Long family would definitely follow Sumo and could only choose Sumo. Miss Guyu, didn't your master say where she was going? Sumo asked again. She didn't say the specifics. However, she mentioned a small world. Maybe she's going there. Guyu frowned. Oh, what world? Sumo asked. Windwheel. Guyu frowned. Master may be going to find someone like her, a reincarnator of the Three Realms Galaxy. Windwheel. Sumo was shocked. Windwheel? That couldn't be a simple coincidence. Of course, Sumo had heard of the Windwheel world. Back then, hadn't the Windwheel sect's senior brothers and sisters returned to the so-called Windwheel world? However, Sumo knew almost nothing about the Windwheel world. He didn't know what kind of existence the Windwheel world was. This was the first time he'd heard anyone mention it since leaving the Bone Continent. Did she say where the Windwheel world is? Sumo asked. No. Guyu shook her head. Master, she's very quiet. Aside from teaching me immortal arts, she rarely speaks to me. Even on the rare occasions, it's just a sentence or two. 30,000 years ago, she saw my ninth brother and sighed for a long time. Not long after, she left the Pure Land. From then on, we never heard from her again. Sumo nodded, then looked at Yuuji. They both knew that with Murong Haiching's cultivation, he would definitely be able to identify Gu Yu's ninth brother. However, she couldn't help him. That was probably the reason she left the Pure Land immediately. Apart from Sumo, AMU was the only one who possessed the Three Realms origin power. Perhaps Murong Haiching wanted to find his senior brother, AMU. Yes, Sumo nodded and didn't say anything else. 6 hours passed very quickly for them. Breathe in. Inside the cave, the green-robed cultivator's breathing grew heavier. The 9 dragon souls grew even more restless. The runes in the cave began to shine faintly. The power of the world breaker rippled like water. He's about to wake up. As Guyu spoke, she instinctively leaned back slightly. She knew that once ninth brother woke up, the formation would most likely fluctuate and release a great deal of energy. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 557. Breathe in. Breathe in. The green-clothed cultivator's breathing became heavier and heavier. His body even began to tremble slightly. Guyu's nervousness, to some extent, was also transmitted to Sumo and the others. Therefore, Sumo's coercion slightly spread out. The coercion of the late stage of breaking the world directly protected Guyu and the others, which made them feel a little relieved. Howl! Roar! Suddenly, a dragon's roar shook the cave. The time had come. Looking again, the green-clothed cultivator in the cave had slowly raised his head. His clothes and long hair were fluttering without any wind. It was no less than the aura of breaking the world. The green-clothed cultivator had a kind of transcendent temperament. Clatter, clatter. Under the feet of the green-clothed cultivator, the sound of chains rang. He slowly stood up. Brother Jiao, Guyu and Gu Xing called out in a low voice. However, the green-clothed cultivator did not respond at all. He seemed to not hear Guyu and Gu Xing's call and stood up by himself. Clatter. The sound of chains was clear and harsh. Howl. The green-clothed cultivator suddenly looked up to the sky and let out a shocking dragon roar. The 8 dragon souls around him, each with a ferocious face, flew up and down, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Whoosh! Immediately, the power of breaking the world spread out like a tide. Boom! Hua! Inside the cave, the spiritual energy rippled. The light curtain fluctuated violently, as if a substantial curtain was blown by a strong wind. At the same time, the entire underground cave was shaking. The power emitted by the green-clothed cultivator shook everything. On the cave wall, many gravel rolled down. The entire dungeon was shaking. Guyu's expression changed slightly. Brother Jiao seemed to be more irritable than before when he woke up this time. However, they were still under the protection of Sumo. However, the green-clothed cultivator seemed to be getting more and more violent. He dodged his feet heavily, as if he wanted to break free from the shackles. Sumo raised his eyebrows. He was considering whether he should make a move. Evil creature. At this time, a shout suddenly came from above their heads. It was the voice of the white-haired granny. Looking again, the light curtain suddenly emitted several rays of light. Crack! Crack! In an instant, the brilliance on the light curtain turned into several light whips. Then, they lashed out at the green-robed cultivator. Pa! Pa! Each whip of light was dozens of feet long. They were all made of break-world power. In truth, each of those whips of light was enough to kill a mid-stage soul-burying realm cultivator. Boom! Pa! The first whip of light struck the cyan-robed cultivator's body. Roar! The 8 dragon souls in his body dissipated. The azure-robed cultivator shuddered. However, he completely withstood the first whip. Then, runes lit up beneath his feet. The power of the seal began to suppress him. Boom! Pa! Pa! The light whips fell like raindrops. The sound of whipping rang out incessantly. In an instant, there were hundreds of hits. A faint mist of blood appeared on the azure-robed cultivator's body. He kept roaring and struggling. At that moment, he really was like a divine dragon in the dragon trapping stance. Ninth brother, ninth brother. Gu Yu and Gu Xing kept screaming. Tears streamed down their cheeks. However, the green-clothed cultivator turned a deaf ear. He continued to roar and resist, but in the end, he couldn't withstand the power of the seal. Evil creature. Cough. It was still the voice of the white-haired granny. However, she actually coughed twice, which meant that she was also a little powerless. Fortunately, the azure-robed cultivator was gradually suppressed. His roars gradually stopped, and his breathing slowly calmed down. Finally, he was surrounded by a mist of blood. As for him, he was half kneeling and half squatting in the cave. The 8 dragon souls around the azure-robed cultivator seemed to be tired as they quietly hovered around him. The clouds dispersed and the rain stopped. The aura in the entire cave gradually calmed down. Just now, it was as if a huge battle had taken place. Ninth brother, ninth brother. Gu Yu and Gu Xing shouted again. At that moment, the azure-robed cultivator slowly turned around. His long hair hung down, covering both sides of his face. His exposed face looked as pale as a sheet of paper. However, his eyes were abnormally bright. However, there was a hint of unwillingness hidden in the depths of his eyes. Gan Tianqing, Sumo and Yu Wuji looked at each other. They were certain that the azure-robed cultivator was the divine dragon pavilion master of the Xiantian Pavilion, Gan Tianqing, the number 1 divine dragon in the Xiantian Pavilion. Gan Tianqing was half human and half dragon. He was an extremely special existence with ancient secret techniques. He had the supreme secret technique, the divine dragon 9 transformations. The divine dragon 9 transformations was a body of 9 dragons. If a dragon did not die, it could exist forever. In a sense, Gan Tianqing had 9 lives. Back then, apart from Qing Mozi, he was the number 1 in the entire Xiantian Pavilion. Moreover, Gan Tianqing was brave and resourceful. He was a rare figure. In the Battle of a Mortal Town, the second soul of the Plum Blossom Sprite was destroyed by him. Gan Tianqing was definitely a dragon among men. Ninth brother, ninth brother. Gu Yu was still calling. Don't shout, don't shout. The azure-robed cultivator looked up at Gu Yu and the others, then panted. His tone was still filled with hostility. Ninth brother, do you know me? Gu Yu said with tears in her eyes. Ninth brother. Little girl, who are you? The azure-robed cultivator's eyes were blank. Gu Yu and Gu Xing's eyes were gloomy. What's his name? Sumo asked Gu Yu. Gu Qingyang, Gu Yu said. In. Sumo nodded, then turned to face Gu Qingyang and said in a deep voice, Gu Qingyang, do you know me? Sumo's back was facing Gu Yu and the others. At this time, his eyes had turned completely black. Those were demon eyes. Sumo's eyes were like bottomless black holes. Sumo's question sounded like an ordinary question to Gu Yu and the others. However, those words sounded completely different to Gu Qingyang's ears. Boom! Boom! Sumo's words were like a thunderclap, his voice booming. At the same time, Gu Qingyang seemed to see something different in Sumo's eyes. The starlight was bright and endlessly gorgeous. It was a colorful world. Galaxy. A word suddenly popped up in Gu Qingyang's mind. At the same time, the 8 dragon souls outside his body couldn't help but slightly stagnate. At that moment, they all seemed to feel a certain familiar aura. Who are you? Gu Qingyang asked Sumo in a relatively calm tone. Sumo couldn't help but smile slightly. Gu Qingyang, I'm the person who came to receive you. I will wake you up completely, and you won't have to suffer the pain of struggling every day. Ha! Ha ha ha! Gu Qingyang stood up straight and couldn't help but sneer at the sky. His face was devoid of blood. The seal that had lasted for more than 30,000 years had consumed a lot of his efforts. I'm already awake. Why would I wake up? Gu Qingyang stared at Sumo. Unfortunately, the feeling just now was fleeting, because Sumo had taken away his demon eyes. At the moment, he just wanted Gu Qingyang to calm down. Your soul hasn't woken up. Sumo smiled faintly. You still have 8 souls that can't return, but I can make you fully awaken. I'll let you know who you are. Who am I? Gu Qingyang raised his eyebrows suddenly. He moved his eyes away from Sumo and then shifted them to Gu Yu and Gu Xing, Brother Jiao. Brother Jiao. Gu Yu and Gu Xing were calling out. However, Gu Qingyang frowned and shook his head. He seemed to be familiar with those two girls, but he couldn't remember them at all. At this time, Sumo had already turned around. She looked at Gu Yu with a smile and said, "Miss Gu Yu, I want to see your master." Chapter 558. Meet the Patriarch? Gu Yu naturally understood what Sumo's words meant. After meeting Gu Qingyang, Sumo asked to meet the Patriarch again, which meant something. "Senior Su, are you sure you can save my ninth brother?" Gu Yu asked. 90% sure. Su Mo nodded. Good. Gu Yu was overjoyed. At the same time, she was not a sloppy person, so she immediately said, "Then let's go up, and then I'll ask my father to come out of seclusion." Finally, Gu Yu looked back at Gu Qingyang. "Ninth brother, I'll come again. Dragon God, wait a few days." Sumo turned back and cupped her fists at Gu Qingyang with a smile. Yu Wuji also gave Gu Qingyang a deep look. In the Galaxy era, only two pavilion masters of the mysterious Heaven Pavilion had advanced to the Eternal Realm. The one that Qing Mo often talked about was Gan Tianqing, because Gan Tianqing's temperament was very similar to that of the Azure Demon. He was calm and insufferably arrogant. He had both the pen and the sword. Gu Qingyang looked at them and did not say anything. Ever since meeting Sumo, he had become much calmer. At this moment, he was sitting cross-legged in the cave, no longer anxious. However, he looked at Sumo, Gu Yu, and the others and did not say anything. His thoughts were still extremely chaotic. This was because his cycle of reincarnation was different from the others, and there were even different voices in his mind. Gu Yu and the others returned the way they came. After a while, they arrived at the courtyard from before. At this moment, the white-haired granny and the eunuch in red were sitting cross-legged in the courtyard. The aura of the entire courtyard was completely different from before. This was because Gu Qingyang, who was underground, was no longer in a state of deep sleep, so they had to be vigilant and prepared at all times. They had been living like this for more than 30,000 years. It could be said that they were physically and mentally exhausted. There was a trace of blood at the corner of the white-haired granny's mouth. In fact, as time passed, they became more and more powerless. Just now, in order to suppress Gu Qingyang, the white-haired granny was already injured. They didn't know how much longer the grand sealing formation could last. However, they knew that Gu Qingyang was getting more and more difficult to control. Ancestors, Gu Yu and Gu Xing greeted them again. The white-haired granny looked at them coldly and didn't say anything. However, the look in her eyes said it all. Didn't you make a wasted trip? This kind of thing had happened countless times in the past 30,000 years. She was already disheartened and had no hope of saving Gu Qingyang. How is it? The one who spoke was the white-haired eunuch. In fact, he also believed that it was impossible. However, he still opened his mouth and asked, "Senior Su can cure my brother." Gu Yu replied, The two old men were taken aback. "Is that true?" The white-haired granny asked in a deep voice. At the same time, she didn't look at Gu Yu, but at Sumo. She found it hard to believe. This was because even Gu Yu's unfathomable master couldn't cure Gu Qingyang. Of course, Sumo smiled faintly. "Fellow cultivator," the white-haired eunuch spoke again. He didn't usually like to talk. "We old farts have been guarding this place for 30,000 years. Originally, we had no hope for anything. We planned to leave this old bag of bones in this courtyard. Now, you say that you can cure that child's illness?" "I can," Sumo confirmed again. "Who are you, Your Excellency?" the white-haired eunuch asked. "I'm from Xianming," Sumo replied with a smile. He didn't say that he was the city lord of the chaotic gods continent, but directly said that he was from Xianming. In this way, he was preparing to subdue the Gu family. The white-haired eunuch didn't ask who Sumo was, because that wasn't important. Then, he smiled meaningfully. "Fellow Taoist, we two old farts haven't cared about the Gu family's affairs for many years. If you can cure Qingyang this time, then everything will be fine. But if you're just making empty promises..." Hee hee. Even if the Gu family is beaten to a pulp, we'll still tear a piece of Xianming's flesh off. Huh? Sumo couldn't help but laugh. Fellow Taoist, I won't give you that chance. Leave Gu Qingyang's illness to me. Many thanks. The two white-haired old men didn't say anything else. Instead, they cupped their hands in thanks. They were old freaks who had cultivated for tens of thousands of years. Even if their hearts were in turmoil, they could still control their emotions well. Gu Yu, Sumo, and the others bid farewell and left the courtyard. After passing through several courtyards, they returned to the villa's main hall. Gu Yazi and the others were still waiting inside. A few hours wasn't a long time for them. Gu Yu returned the medallion, then got straight to the point. Second uncle, Senior, Su has already met Brother Gio. Now, I want to ask Father to come out of seclusion. Oh, a strange look flashed across Gu Yazi's eyes. City Lord Su, are you sure? Yes. Sumo nodded. Good. Gu Yazi was also a resolute person. Xing arranged for City Lord Su and the others to rest first. You and I will go to ask Big Brother to come out of seclusion. Yes. Gu Xing replied. City Lord Su and the two Alliance Masters. This matter is of great importance. Please wait for a day. Gu Yazi cupped his hands in front of his chest to Sumo, Yu Wuji, and Long Wansheng. It's okay. Sumo and the others cupped their hands in return. Gu Xing led Sumo and the others to rest in the courtyard. After everyone left, only Gu Yu and Gu Yazi were left in the main hall. What do you think of the current situation? Gu Yazi asked. Gu Yu thought for a moment and said, Second uncle, forgive me for speaking frankly. On that night, more than 30,000 years ago, the Gu family's strength was greatly damaged. Brother Nine's matter not only caused the direct descendants of the Gu family to be killed, but it also meant that we destroyed two break-world ancestors. Now, in the Gu family, the two break-world cultivators who can fight are you and my father. To be honest, the Gu family is the weakest in the Sanin family. In the ancient Shu continent, the strong are respected the most. The future of the Gu family is worrying. Gu Yazi nodded. How about Xianming? Xianming Gu Yu laughed. Second uncle, I think you, my father, and the elders in the family have already evaluated how Xianming is. I just want to say that I would rather belong to Xianming than be suppressed by the Chu family and the Yin family. The Tianu Chu family is fine, but the Cold Mountain Yin family has been secretly building up their power. They are definitely ambitious. For tens of thousands of years, the unification of the ancient Shu is the general trend. Sumo's condition for saving Qingyang is to let the Gu family join Xianming. Gu Yazi sighed. Let's go. Let's go to the ancestral hall in the backyard. After that, the two of them went straight to the backyard. The ancestral hall of the Gu family was a courtyard that was neither too big nor too small. It was in the northernmost part of the mountain. There were the sole lamps of the ancestors of the Gu family and the current disciples of the Gu family. On the left and right sides of the ancestral hall, there were 3 rooms. They were locked all year round, and runes were flowing, because this was the place where the important people of the Gu family cultivated. The ancestral hall of the Gu family was not a place that people could enter and leave at will. However, Gu Yazi was an exception. After going through a light door, Gu Yazi and Gu Yu were already standing in the ancestral hall yard. Chapter 559. Sumo and the others were placed in a courtyard of the Gu family's manor. In that courtyard, there were 7 or 8 rooms. There were old trees that reached the sky. It was very elegant and quiet. At this time, people from Xianming gathered in a room to discuss matters. Yu Wuji looked at Sumo and said, Sumo, if the Gu family is the first to submit, Xianming can promise them a leader position for 3,000 years. A leader for 3,000 years? Sumo asked. In other words, for the next 3,000 years, we can give a fixed position of alliance leader to the Gu family. They do not need to go through a test to get a leader position, Yu Wuji said. You have to know that the other leaders of Xianming have to go through many tests before they can be recommended. 2/3 of the Break World elders in Xianming agree to become the leader. Plus, the term is only 500 years. There's a rotation of 100 years. 3,000 years is like 6 liters long, Tian Hao said. Even in Xianming's 7 immortal families, they are in the top 3. Of the 7 great undying families, apart from our Long family, only the Jiang family has held the position of alliance leader for 6 years. This is Xianming's greatest sincerity. Yu Wuji looked at Sumo and said, as for the other areas of power and resource distribution, we can talk about them when the Gu family has submitted. Sumo listened carefully. If one of the 3 southern families submitted, it would be very meaningful, Long Tianhao said. It could be said that once the Gu family submitted, the other 2 families would collapse on their own. That is why the Celestial Alliance is willing to do this. Long Wanqing sighed. But the Gu family must have at least 1 break-world cultivator, Yu Wuji said. That is Xianming's rule. There can be no exceptions. Hostage? Su Limo couldn't help but smile. If you're sincere in submitting, then you're not a hostage, but a fated person. Yu Wuji laughed and said, let me ask you something. Among the break-world cultivators of the Xianming's immortal families, how many of them did not go to the ancient Shu Mountain? That's right. Long Wanqing sighed. Xianming is our strongest support. The ancient Shu continent can only be stronger if it is unified. After listening, Sumo nodded again. I understand. I will make everything perfect, Sumo said. In fact, looking at the situation of the whole Pure Land, it also needed the ancient Shu to unify. Then the Pure Land would be unified. Only then would they be able to better contend against Tianfu City. It should be said that the right time, the right place, and the right people were all present. Meanwhile, Gu Clan Ancestral Hall. Gu Yazi had already brought Gu Yu into Ancient Holy Sun's seclusion grounds. Ancient Holy Child had the appearance of a middle-aged cultivator. He was brimming with vigor and vitality. He was in the middle stage of the Breakworld stage. Right now, he was at his peak. Ancient Holy Sun was the strongest power in the Gu family. It could be said that the Gu family had begun to decline, but they were still standing. It was mostly because of the existence of Ancient Holy Sun. In the San'an family, the highest level cultivator was in the middle stage of the Breakworld stage. Ancient Holy Sun was in the middle stage of the Breakworld stage, and his power was very strong. That kind of shock made people with ambitions not dare to act rashly. That was why the balance of the San'an family was maintained. The balance between the San'an family and Xianming family was maintained. If that balance was broken, the situation would change dramatically. At this time, the 3 of them had been talking for a long time. Even though Gu Shengzi was in seclusion, everything was already clear to him now. Gu Qingyang had always been a pain in the Gu family. But like Gu Yu said, in a sense, Gu Qingyang was the Gu family. With Gu Qingyang's talent, if he could be cured, it would not be a problem for him to reach the Destroy Sea realm. The Gu family could turn things around. Plus, he had taken Sumo into consideration. The late stage of the Break-World stage was enough to suppress all the cultivators in the ancient Shu. To them, the 3 realms galaxy was an unreal existence. However, there was Morong Haiqing before, and there was Sumo after. That meant it was a power that could not be underestimated. The Gu family needed to develop, so they needed to make a choice. When the other party was still weak, they needed the Gu family. Otherwise, the opportunity would be fleeting. Submitting to Xianming and making friends with the cultivators of the 3 realms galaxy could make the Gu family shine again. Plus, Gu Qingyang was a reincarnator of the 3 realms. With such an identity, it was enough for them to gamble. So, when it came to submitting to Xianming, Ancient Holy Sun and Gu Yazi had no disagreement. However, they needed to maximize the benefits of the Gu family. There were many details that needed to be negotiated. Of course, they also understood what it meant for Xianming to submit to the Gu family. So, they had to ensure the benefits of the Gu family. Pass on the order. An hour later, all the elders of the Gu family in the Red Desert will gather in the Ancestral Hall. Those who don't come will be punished according to the family rules. Yes, sir, Gu Yu replied. Soon, the elders of the Gu family in the Red Desert began to return to the villa and the Ancestral Hall. They were all the cultivators of the God-burying realm. Some of them had already guessed something, while others still didn't know why they were summoned back in such a hurry. In short, this night was destined to be special for the Gu family. The Cold Mountain was the easternmost part of the ancient Shu continent. It was a very special mountain range, because after crossing the Cold Mountain range, there was an endless ravine. And if one crossed the ravine, one could reach the bitter Samsara Sea. The bitter Samsara Sea was the center of the Pure Land. There were many treasures in the bitter Samsara Sea. For the cultivators of the ancient Shu continent, the bitter Samsara Sea was a place where they could adventure. And the Een family of the Cold Mountain were frequent visitors to the bitter Samsara Sea. Almost every disciple of the Een family had experience in the bitter Samsara Sea. Crossing the Heaven Ravine was a common thing for them. At the same time, at the foot of the Cold Mountain, a small boat was approaching slowly from the direction of the ravine. It was a black boat with an old man in black clothing standing on it. The old man was tall and big. He stood on the boat with his hands folded behind his back, looking at the Cold Mountain. He had white hair and looked like a tiger. The small boat was traveling in the ravine like the waves. However, the old man didn't move a muscle on the boat. Everything in the ravine moved away from him. At the foot of the Cold Mountain, some people were waiting for the old man to come back. 2 men and 1 woman. The 2 male practitioners were wearing a long gray robe, and their appearances were almost identical. The other female practitioner was wearing a long red dress, with fair skin and an enchanting figure. She was very beautiful and full of charm. Unfortunately, there was a long scar on the left side of her face. They were none other than the 3 guests of the Een family who had been fooled by Sumo that day. Seeing the small boat, the 3 of them knelt down on their knees, and the old man in black clothing had already come close to them. "Welcome home, great grandmaster," the 3 guests of the Een family said at the same time. The old man in black clothing nodded with a smile. "The 3 little guys have grown up. Not bad, get up." If the other cultivators of the ancient Shu continent were to hear these words, they would definitely be extremely shocked. It was because the 3 guests of the Een family were all-powerful swordsmen who had cultivated for tens of thousands of years. It was then that the energy of the old man in black clothing spread out slightly. The 3 guests of the Een family couldn't help but feel shocked. The state of breaking realm. It was a state that the practitioners of the ancient Shu had never reached. Chapter 560. The Gu Family Villa. Sumo and the others didn't know the details of the internal meeting of the Gu family. However, on the 3rd day after they arrived at the Gu family, Gu Yu and Gu Xing came to invite Sumo, Yu Wuji, and Long Wansheng. In the main hall of the villa, Sumo and the others met with Gu Xingzi. It could be said that both sides weighed the pros and cons, and then took what they needed. Therefore, both Xianming and the Gu family were very sincere. Therefore, the whole process of the meeting went very smoothly. The Gu family joined Xianming and would get the position of leader for 3,000 years, while Gu Yazi would be stationed at ancient Shu Peak to cultivate. The resources of the Red Desert, on the premise of meeting the needs of the Gu family, would be allocated by Xianming. At the same time, Xianming would transfer other cultivation resources to the Gu family. The area under the jurisdiction of the Gu family was still the Red Desert area. However, the headquarters of Xianming would also send cultivators to the Red Desert to cooperate with the management. The Gu family would no longer wear the cultivator uniform of Sannan, but the cultivator uniform of Xianming. However, all of this must be based on the foundation that Sumo cured Gu Qingyang. This was also the biggest prerequisite for the Gu family to join Xianming. Otherwise, nothing would count. In the end, the 2 sides made an oath of alliance and made a contract. The Gu family was only 1 step away from truly joining Xianming. There was no time to lose. Under Sumo's suggestion, Gu Shengzi, Gu Yazi, Gu Yu, and other important figures of the Gu family, as well as Yu Wuji, Long Wansheng, and other cultivators of Xianming, went directly to the cave residence where Gu Qingyang was sealed. This time, the white-haired granny in red and the father-in-law didn't show up at all. Of course, they had already been informed of the agreement between the Gu family and Xianming. As long as Gu Qingyang could recover, they had no other ideas. Alas, old man, do you think that poor child can really be cured? In the dark, the white-haired granny changed her usual hostile tone. It's very likely, the white-haired duke said. If that Sumo wasn't confident, she wouldn't have made such a big fuss. The discussion was over. The Gu family had already agreed to join the Immortal Alliance. If they couldn't cure Qin Yang's illness, he not only did Xianming embarrass himself, but they've also toyed with our Gu family. The white-haired eunuch lowered his voice slightly. If that's the case, I'll risk my life to kill a few alliance masters of Xianming. But the white-haired eunuch calmed himself down. I think Sumo should be fine. That person is very special. He will never make empty promises. I hope everything goes well. The white-haired granny sighed. The two of them were silent. Underground cave. Sumo and the others had already arrived outside the light screen. Inside the light screen, Gu Qingyang was sitting cross-legged with his hair draped over his shoulders. Seeing Gu Shengzi and Gu Yazi, his expression was gloomy. Gu Shengzi and Gu Yazi both had complicated expressions. Gu Qingyang used to be Gu Yazi's youngest son. However, at that moment, they were no longer able to determine exactly whose son Gu Qingyang was, because the other 8 dragon souls were attached to his body. They were the divine souls of the other Gu family brothers. The 9 dragons were one, and Gu Qingyang could be said to be the same bloodline of the brothers. Qingyang. Gu Shengzi sighed and called out. Gu Yazi also called out softly. However, Gu Qingyang looked at them coldly, confused, and did not say anything. He seemed to have no interest in many external things. You're back. Gu Qingyang's gaze finally fell on Sumo. He only remembered that this black-robed cultivator had come 2 days ago. As for the others, including Gu Yu, Gu Xing, Yu Wuji, Long Wansheng, and the others, he had no impression of them. It could be said that his soul was in a state of emptiness. If the dragon's saliva back, then was the leakage of the reincarnated body. Then Gu Qingyang was the leakage of his divine soul. His divine soul could not store anything at all. That's right. Sumo smiled and said, You still remember me. Very good. Seeing this situation, Gu Shengzi and Gu Yazi were confident in their hearts. Gu Qingyang's feelings towards Sumo were indeed a little different. Gu Qingyang, I'm here to receive you today. Sumo looked at Gu Qingyang and smiled again. You've been lost for too long. Your soul needs to go home. What? Gu Qingyang looked at Sumo in a daze. In fact, he did not understand what Sumo said. He was confused and ignorant. Patriarchs, all of you, please step back. In a moment, no one is allowed to come within 10 feet of me. Otherwise, you will die. Sumo turned her head and solemnly said to Gu Shengzi. Gu Shengzi heard this and raised his eyebrows slightly. Then, he took the initiative to retreat 10 feet away. When he retreated, the other people of the Gu family naturally retreated. Yu Wuji, Long Wansheng, and the others also retreated. Sumo stood alone in front. She was only 10 feet away from Gu Qingyang. There were layers of light screens in the middle. At that moment, the entire cave house was silent. The 2 ancestral patriarchs on the surface were also watching everything. Sumo's expression was very calm, because Gan Tianqing was an existence of the 3 realms in the past. Sumo put his divine soul in one place, so it could be said that it was a piece of cake. However, Sumo did not want to make everything look too easy. So, Sumo began to make a seal. Roar, roar. And at that moment, Gu Qingyang seemed to instinctively sense a kind of danger. He suddenly stood up, looked up to the sky, and roared. The 8 dragon souls around him began to bare their fangs and claws at the same time. Divine Dragon, don't be impatient. Sumo's tone was very calm, which made people feel very comfortable. At the same time, his eyes turned pitch black again. Black vortexes began to appear. Inside the demonic eyes, there were the reflections of the 3 realms. However, only Gu Qingyang could see those scenes. A blood moon, surrounded by 7 stars. That was the former Shurid demon continent. In the corner of the Blood Mountain, there was a small building. Countless white bones accumulated into a column. That was the former Pakshuan Heaven Pavilion. Life and death killing, transforming into a dragon. The scenes that appeared in Sumo's eyes were all gone Tianqing's memories. However, it was not Sumo who developed everything, but Gan Tianqing's divine soul that was awakening. Sumo did not fully know what Gan Tianqing had experienced. He was only a guide. Breathe. Inhale. Exhale. Gradually, the slightly irascible Gu Qingyang actually stood there and slowly closed his eyes. This was the first time in 30,000 years that he closed his eyes when he should not be sleeping. His breathing gradually steadied. It was as if this was the only real sleep he had in the past 30,000 years. Sumo smiled faintly. His hand seals changed again. His fingertips emitted 9 rays of light at the same time. One of them went straight into Gu Qingyang's Danci. The other 8 each went to a dragon's soul. Roar! The 8 dragon souls shuddered, but their roars had already turned into moans. Before the 3 realms' power of origin, they could only submit. Then, the rays of light wrapped around them and went straight into Gu Qingyang's Danci. There was no sound, no struggle. That scene made all the members of the Gu family who were present excited, because the 8 dragon souls did not reappear with Gu Qingyang's breathing. Divine Dragon, awaken! Sumo exclaimed softly. Chapter 561. Any life without a soul was a tragedy. Gu Qingyang spent 30,000 years in a muddle-headed state. These 30,000 years were like a dream to him. Moreover, it was a dream that he would forget everything after he woke up. In fact, when he first saw Sumo, especially Sumo's black eyes, Gu Qingyang's soul had gradually awakened. It wasn't because of Sumo's technique, but because of the aura of the 3 realms' origin that came with Sumo. 9 divine dragon transformations, 9 dragons in one body. Although Gan Tianqing was a special existence in the 3 realms galaxy, he was still from the 3 realms. That year, when the Milky Way shattered, he was already an eternal 9th stage Almighty. The destructive power of the realm Lotus had killed him 9 times. Therefore, his 9 souls had reincarnated one after another. Fortunately, they had all reincarnated into the Gu family. Unfortunately, the 9 souls were no longer one. The 9th soul was Gan Tianqing's primary soul. In the beginning, he only knew that he was Gu Qingyang. Above him, there were 8 special brothers. However, after passing the mortal stage, Gu Qingyang's soul fluctuated inexplicably. He often felt that there were indiscernible voices in his mind, disorderly. Occasionally, when he saw his other 8 brothers, he would fall into a momentary trance. However, he could control himself and didn't mind it too much. When all 9 souls ascended to the soul burial stage, the trance reached an extreme. In truth, it was a strong resonance, a mutual summoning. However, that resonance and summoning came with a price of blood. That night, Gu Qingyang was completely unable to control himself. In fact, he did not even know that he had killed his 8 elder brothers and other clansmen. That was the only way for the 8 dragon souls to return to his side. However, the 9 dragon souls couldn't fuse into one. The 8 dragon souls coiled around his body. They lacked the power to fuse with one another. As he inhaled and exhaled, Gu Qingyang was suffering and struggling in the splitting and closing of his soul. It could be said that Gu Qingyang had not been awake since that night. However, everything had changed today. Sumo released the 3 realms' origin energy, and the 8 dragon souls were guided straight into Gu Qingyang's Danci. A huge whirlpool appeared in the center of his core sea. There was already a golden 5-clawed dragon soul inside the vortex. That dragon soul was clearer and more powerful than the other 8 dragon souls. Howl! Roar! Within the whirlpool, the dragon soul raised its head to the sky and roared, instantly stirring up a 1,000-meter-tall wave. Right at this moment, the other 8 dragon souls had already arrived. Roar! Woo! The 8 dragon souls surrounded the golden dragon soul and roared into the sky. They seemed to be greeting each other. Who? Then, the golden dragon soul suddenly soared into the sky and charged straight for one of the dragon souls. Who? Hua. The golden dragon soul opened its huge mouth and directly devoured the first dragon soul. The dragon soul that was being devoured seemed to be prepared and did not struggle at all. The golden dragon soul did not stop and went straight for the second dragon soul. The same action, the same situation. The golden dragon soul flew one round in the sky above the dance sea. All 8 dragon souls were devoured. At this moment, the golden dragon soul had turned into a 9-colored dragon soul. Howl, roar. The 9-colored dragon soul raised its head to the sky and roared. Then, it suddenly plunged into Gu Qingyang's dance sea and disappeared. At this moment, Gu Qingyang's body trembled slightly. The dragon god had awakened. The dragon god had awakened. Sumo's words resounded in Gu Qingyang's mind like an oracle. It was a true awakening. Gu Qingyang slowly opened his eyes in a seemingly leisurely manner. It was as if he had just woken up from a great slumber that had lasted for tens of thousands of years. His eyes were still a little sleepy. However, countless information surged into his mind like a tide. The past of the 3 realms, the past of the Milky Way. Everything came one after another. He was gone, Tianqing, reincarnated from the destruction of the Milky Way. Gu Qingyang's eyes gradually became clear. Finally, a divine light exploded in the depths of his eyes. Boom! It was a soundless explosion. Gu Qingyang had completely awakened. Qingyang, Brother Jiu, the Gu family hurriedly called out. Even the usually calm Gu Xingzi was a little excited. They could all see that Gu Qingyang's aura was completely different from before. The heavy breathing was gone, and all the dragon souls had disappeared. Gu Qingyang stood up and glanced at Sumo and Yu Wuji. He did not immediately respond, but knelt in front of Gu Shengzi and Gu Yazi. I am unfilial. I'm sorry for making you worry. Gu Qingyang solemnly kowtowed to Gu Shengzi and Gu Yazi 3 times. Gu Shengzi and Gu Yazi could not help but look at each other. In their eyes, there was surprise and helplessness. It was really sad that the 9 sons of the Gu family had turned into one person in the end. Gu Shengzi and Gu Yazi stepped forward at the same time, each holding one of Gu Qingyang's arms, and gently pulled him up. He was the only male heir of the Gu family. Gu Qingyang was the future of the Gu family. It's good that you're awake. It's good that you're awake. Gu Yazi's eyes were filled with tears as she patted Gu Qingyang's shoulder. In this way, we can answer to the ancestors of the Gu family. Brother Jiu, Brother Jiu. Gu Xing and Gu Yu also came forward to greet him. Gu Yu was the happiest among all of them. She had already cried tears of joy. Her long-cherished wish had finally been fulfilled after 30,000 years. It's been hard on you for 30,000 years. Gu Qingyang looked at his 2 sisters. It's not hard at all. Gu Yu smiled with tears in her eyes. Sumo, Yu Wuji, and the others did not step forward to speak. After all, this was a war moment that belonged to the Gu family. In the end, Gu Qingyang separated the Gu family and walked to Sumo. He knelt on one knee solemnly and said, Divine Dragon Gon Tianqing pays his respects to the Demon King. Sumo pulled Gon Tianqing up and said, Divine Dragon Pavilion Master, the 2 realms reincarnated. Now, the 9 dragons have become one. Congratulations. If the Demon King hadn't arrived, I don't know when I would have shown my true body. I thank the Demon King here. Gon Tianqing expressed his gratitude again. The Milky Way shattered, and all the cultivators perished. It's our fortune that the undead like us could meet in another world. Sumo let out a long sigh. Gon Tianqing nodded, then turned to Yu Wuji and bowed deeply. Gon Tianqing greets the Pavilion Master's wife. Oh, Yu Wuji couldn't help but be stunned. It was not surprising that Gon Tianqing recognized Sumo just now, because just now, Su Mo had released the power of the 3 realms to receive him. However, Gon Tianqing recognized him at first glance. One had to know that not only had Yu Wuji changed his appearance, but he was also wearing a veil. Moreover, she did not say a word from beginning to end. Yu Wuji asked curiously, Divine Dragon Pavilion Master, how did you recognize me? Palace Master Yu, do you have the aura of a Pavilion Master on you? That's why I guessed your identity. Gon Tianqing smiled. Oh, A green light flashed between Yu Wuji's brows. That was the life-saving aura that the Azure Fiend had left for her. He did not expect the divine dragon Gan Tianqing to be so sharp. Back in the days, apart from the Azure Fiend, the divine dragon was known as the #1 in the Xiantian Pavilion. The other cultivators could not understand the conversation between the three. However, the Gu family felt that Sumo and Yu Wuji had unfathomable origins. Everyone, how about we talk on the surface? Gu Yazi suggested. All right, everyone agreed. This was not the place to talk. Therefore, everyone returned to the courtyard on the surface. At this moment, the white-haired granny and the eunuch were already waiting in the courtyard. Gan Tianqing knelt to them again to apologize. For 30,000 years, these two ancestors of the Gu clan had sealed them away to protect him. Without them, Gan Tianqing might not have been able to wait for Sumo's arrival. Evil spawn, you must cultivate well and bring the Gu family to greater heights. Otherwise, you'll be letting down the Gu family members who died for you. The red-haired granny teared up and scolded with a smile. The red-haired eunuch smiled and did not say anything. I understand, Gan Tianqing replied respectfully. Just like that, everyone left the courtyard. The red-haired granny and the eunuch could finally leave this place and regain their freedom. The Gu family's forbidden land disappeared. Chapter 562. Gu Qingyang, the heir of the Gu family, had cultivated for 30,000 years and came out of seclusion at the middle stage of the breaking world realm. This news quickly spread throughout the Red Desert. It could be said that the entire Red Desert was jubilant, because a cultivator at the middle stage of the breaking world realm could break the balance and change the situation. The strength of the Gu family had greatly improved. The entire Red Desert would benefit. This news was deliberately spread by the Gu family. Soon, the Chu family and the Yin family learned about it. The Sanin family used to be one, advancing and retreating together. However, at this time, when the news of Gu Qingyang came out, the other two families sensed an ominous atmosphere. Gu Qingyang was a name that had disappeared for a long time. Even the Chu family and the Yin family thought that the heir of the Gu family was long gone. There were various theories about the 9 sons of the Gu family, but none of them had been confirmed. However, the Chu family and the Yin family certainly didn't want the Gu family to have a cultivator at the middle stage of the breaking world realm out of thin air. Gu Qingyang suddenly came out of seclusion, which made people feel a little strange. Moreover, the news that someone from Xianmeng had come to the Red Desert also spread like wildfire. The Chu family and the Yin family felt that something was wrong. Therefore, they all took action. The relationship between the Sanan family and the Chu family was closer to the Gu family. The two sides even had the idea of marriage. Chu Fei and Chu Yun were the best of the Chu family. Gu Xing and Gu Yu were also the best of the Gu family. They were about the same age and the same realm. Therefore, the two families were interested. However, among them, only Gu Yu refused to nod. There were some clues about the matter between Chu Fei and Gu Xing. Therefore, the two families didn't follow up. After all, cultivators didn't care about age as much as mortals did. Everything was not in a hurry, especially the Gu family and the Chu family. Once they got married, it might make the Yin family embarrassed and sensitive. At the same time, it would also affect the structure of the Sanan family. Therefore, these things needed to be planned and considered carefully. However, this time, the Chu family understood that they needed to take some action. If a cultivator Xianmeng really came to the Gu family, and at this time, a Gu Qingyang suddenly appeared, that meant things weren't as simple as they seemed. Therefore, on the 3rd day after Gu Qingyang came out of seclusion, the Gu family received a visiting card from the Chu family. 3 days later, the Chu clan would send the human clan's great elder, Chu Fei, and the others to congratulate Gu Qingyang for breaking through and coming out of seclusion. Everyone understood that this was a test by the Chu family. However, whether it was Sumo, Yu Wuji, Gu Shengzi, or Gu Qingyang, they all hoped that the Chu family could come. The Gu family had secretly joined Xianmeng. Compared to the Chu family and the Yin family, it was easier for the Chu family to join Xianming. Furthermore, the Tianhu Lake controlled by the Chu family occupied a vast area and had abundant cultivation resources. In terms of the size of the territory controlled and the richness of resources, the Chu family was the first among the Sanin families. The Chu family proposed to congratulate Gu Qingyang for coming out of seclusion, which was a kind of goodwill in itself. After all, the news of Gu Qingyang coming out of seclusion and Xianming coming to the Gu family were deliberately spread by Sumo and Gu Qingyang. If the Chu family had a strong conflict, they would probably not send a formal visiting card, but secretly send someone to investigate. Therefore, the development of the situation was under Sumo's control. At night, in a tall building of the Gu family's villa, Sumo and Gan Tianqing stood on the top floor of the tall building, looking out with their hands behind their backs. Red City was emitting a faint red glow inside and outside. The night here was very special. Demon King, if we unify the ancient Shu, will we be able to challenge Tian Fu? Gan Tianqing asked. The Pure Lands have 3 continents. The White Bone continent is under my control. The chaotic god has probably been subdued by the dragon saliva, and the ancient Shu has submitted. Then, with the addition of Mu Qingqing's 9 underworlds, the entire Pure Lands will be in the hands of the reincarnators of the 3 realms. Sumo sighed. Maybe, in terms of peak power, we're not as strong as Tian Fu, but we can put up a fight. Demon King, how is your true combat strength? Gan Tianqing asked with a smile that was not a smile. This was because he knew that people like Su Mo could not be used as a reference for their realms. True combat strength? Sumo couldn't help but smile. If you count all the things I have, then I should be able to kill a 1 reincarnation realm expert. Eternal realm? Although Gan Tianqing was mentally prepared, he was still shocked. Sumo could kill a 1 reincarnation realm expert at the middle stage of the breaking world realm. That was unbelievable. Hee. Sumo shook her head and smiled. It's not me that can do it. It's the things I have that can. I have a Holy Lotus Spirit sense, so it should be easy for me to destroy an Eternal Realm expert. Of course, before I fight with Tian Fu, I need to make some preparations. I have a puppet that I haven't subdued yet. Holy Lotus Spirit sense? Gan Tianqing selectively ignored the latter part of Sumo's words and frowned. Holy Lotus is really from the Yizong realm. That's right. Sumo nodded. He is from the dynasty of the ancient Lotus Starfield, but I am not sure about the specifics. The Yizong realm is too big. Holy Father Amu, is there any news? Gan Tianqing asked. There's no news. Sumo sighed. Songhai is right. Something must have happened to Amu. Otherwise, with his character and ability, he should have found us a long time ago. Isn't that right? Gan Tianqing nodded. Unify the ancient Shu, and then defeat the Tianfu city. I will leave the Pure Land world and go to a bigger space to find everything. Sumo looked at the sky. His gaze was very distant. Wind wheel or dust net? What about the people of the Pure Land? Gan Tianqing asked. The people of the Pure Land? Sumo's mouth curved. The people of the Pure Land, of course, are still in the Pure Land. We are all reincarnating in the Pure Land. This is also our second home. Banish the Tianfu city, and the Pure Land will not become a puppet. This place will become the real Pure Land. Divine Dragon, I want to restore the Star River, but I didn't say I want to destroy Yizong. So, I won't let innocent people die. However, I won't let the cultivator who destroyed the Star River go. Either he kills me, or I kill him. At the end, Sumo's eyes flashed with hostility. Because this hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Gan Tianqing listened and nodded lightly. Demon King, I am Gan Tianqing and also Gu Qingyang. If you do this, I won't be embarrassed. Unify the ancient Shu, in my opinion, is as easy as flipping my hand. When we defeat the Tianfu city, the Pure Land will really become a Pure Land. I am willing to work with the Demon King to find the other 3 realms reincarnators. Returning my Star River is my responsibility, Gan Tianqing said. Hee. Sumo said, more and more people in the 3 realms are awakening. Our path is not lonely. In fact, Every cultivator of the Star River has a heart to make the Star River brilliant again. I only hope that we can meet again soon. Gan Tianqing smiled faintly. 3 days later, the cultivators of the Chu family had arrived at the Red Desert. Gu Yazi brought Gu Qingyang, Gu Xing, and Gu Yu to meet them 3,000 miles away from the Red City to show their importance. In addition to Chu Fei and Chu Yun, the Chu family also brought 3 cultivators in the later stage of the God-burying realm. At the same time, they were led by the great elder of the Chu family, Chu Yunan. Chu Yunan was in the middle stage of the world-breaking realm. He was an important figure in the Chu family, and his words carried enormous weight. Chu Zhengxiu, the current master of the Chu family, was still his junior in terms of seniority. Therefore, the Chu family's lineup this time could be said to be powerful. At the same time, the Yin family of the Cold Mountain had begun to hold a high-level meeting. The Yin family would never submit to them, because they had the great completion of the world-breaking realm. Chapter 563. The Gu Clan Villa. Because of Chu Yunan's arrival, the Gu clan received him with the highest standards. However, the Gu Holy Son did not show himself. Gu Yazi, Gu Qingyang, and the others accompanied him the entire time. Sumo, Yu Wuji, and the others naturally could not show themselves. After exchanging greetings, Chu Yunan went straight to the point and asked the Gu Holy Son, "Brother Gu, our Gu and Chu clans have been on good terms for generations. We have come this time to congratulate young Master Qingyang on his breakthrough, and we also have some matters that we would like to consult with you on." Elder Chu is too serious. "If there is anything, please speak," Gu Yazi said with a smile. "Recently, I heard that someone from the Xianmeng family came to the Red Desert. Is this true, or does the Gu clan have a new plan?" Chu Yunan's words were very direct. There is no need to beat around the bush at this time. "Huh." Gu Yazi couldn't help but laugh. "Elder Chu, in truth, if no one from the Chu clan had come in the last 2 days, we would have invited them. To tell you the truth, people from Xianmeng have indeed come to the Red Desert." "Oh." Chu Yunan's expression flickered. Although he had been mentally prepared, he had not expected Gu Yazi to admit it so readily. This meant that the Gu clan had already made up their mind and were fearless. "How do we proceed on the path of the Gu clan?" Chu Yunan continued to ask. "Elder Chu, let me ask you first, how is Xianmeng?" Gu Yazi did not immediately answer, instead asking a question of his own. "Xianmeng? Huh." Chu Yunan couldn't help but laugh. "Brother Gu, why ask me about Xianmeng? Our Sanin clan and Xianmeng have coexisted on the ancient Shu continent for millions of years. We all know what Xianmeng is like. Magnanimous?" Gu Yazi asked Chu Yunan. Chu Yunan thought for a moment before finally nodding. In truth, Xianmeng was far stronger than the Sanin clan. However, for many millenniums, Xianmeng's overall attitude toward Sanin had always been relatively gentle. Just like what Jiang Yuntian had said before, Xianmeng didn't want the ancient Shu to be flooded with blood. Otherwise, he could have easily recovered the land of Sanan. The Sanan family relied on Xianmeng's attitude to occupy the south of Shu. Xianmeng is a country of benevolence and righteousness. Chu Yunan sighed. The Sanan clan would not deny this point. "Elder Chu is right," Gu Yazi agreed. "You and I both understand that if Xianmeng wanted to massacre the Three South, he would have done it long ago. Although the price was high, victory was certain. But Xianmeng didn't do that. We ancient Shu cultivators only recognize the benevolent, the strong, the wise, and the brave. In fact, there are many of them in Xianmeng." Gu Yazi looked at Chu Yunan and said, "Ha." When Chu Yunan heard Gu Yazi's words, she couldn't help but smile coldly. "Brother Gu, is there no such person in our Sanin clan? The Gu family, the Chu family, and the Yin family, which family leader is not in the middle stage of the breaking world realm. Not to mention, there are several breaking world realm cultivators in the Sanin clan. I'm not talented, but I'm not among them. What Xianmeng has, the Sanin clan also has." Gu Yazi smiled. "What Elder Chu said is very true. However, there are some things that Xianmeng has, but we may not have. Of course, what we have, Xianming may not have. That's why we're able to communicate with each other normally. In the final analysis, Xianming and Sanin clan need each other. Haha. Chu Yunan's face softened a little. Brother Gu, what you said is reasonable. However, although Xianming is strong, our Sanin clan is not weak. We can't bow down to him. We don't have to bow down to him. Gu Yazi shook his head. But this time, people from Xianming came to invite us to join Xianming. Join Xianming. Chu Yunan's voice was low. This idea is not surprising. For so many years, Xianming's previous leaders all had this idea, but they didn't have the ability. Their elders didn't have a character that could suppress the Sanin clan. Why do they want us to join Xianming? Why didn't any of its immortal families come to join the Sanin clan? Xianming has a character that can suppress the Sanin clan. Gu Yazi saw that Chu Yunan was in a bad mood. It seemed he needed to suppress his momentum. Huh? Suppress the Sanin clan? Who? Chu Yunan's mind was spinning. He knew almost all of the more than 20 Breaking World elders of Xianming. Among them, the highest level was only the middle stage of the Breaking World. The late stage of the Breaking World was like an insurmountable gap for ancient Shu. He had never heard of anyone who could break through. Was it the first elder of Xianming who claimed to be the most powerful? Wasn't that old man's lifespan about to end? How did he break through? Old Chu, I won't lie to you, Gu Yazi said. Xianming's people are in my mountain. Ha! Chu Yunan's lips curled up. He coldly laughed. Brother Gu, it looks like the Gu family is ready to join Xianming. Are you going to force the Chu family to submit? Gu Yazi quickly waved his hand and said, Old Chu, what are you talking about? I, Gu Yazi, promise that every member of the Chu family will be safe in the Red Desert. No matter if it is Xianming or the Gu family, they will not harm you. When two countries are at war, we don't kill envoys. Besides, we are like a family. I just want to tell you everything. I don't want to hide anything in case the Chu family misjudged the situation. The Gu family has indeed agreed to join Xianming, Gu Yazi said seriously. As for the future of the Chu family, it's up to the Chu family to decide. But no matter what, even if the Gu family joins Xianming, we will never touch any member of the Chu family, let alone invade an inch of Tianhu's land. Old Chu, my words represent the entire Gu family. Gu Yazi solemnly cupped his hands to Chu Yunan. Well, hearing Gu Yazi's words, Chu Yunan couldn't help but let out a long sigh. To be honest, Gu Yazi's words moved her and increased the pressure. One of the three major families was gone. The situation was not good. However, the Gu family's credibility was beyond doubt. After a long while, the whole hall was silent. Chu Yunan didn't say anything. The other members of the Chu family frowned. Of course, the Gu family was not in a hurry to say anything. The Chu family needed to think about the current situation, although they had a plan when they came. However, he still needed to calm down. Only Gu Xing, who was standing behind Gu Yazi, had been looking at Chu Fei anxiously. Chu Fei and Gu Xing had long been interested in each other. Therefore, at this time, she certainly hoped that the Chu family could also get close to Xianming. Otherwise, they wouldn't have enough time. Elder Chu, if you're interested, I'm willing to help you. We might as well invite Xianming's people, and we can sit down and have a detailed discussion. No matter what, the Gu family will guarantee the safety of the Chu family. At this moment, Gan Tianqing looked at the situation and could not help but smile. With Gan Tianqing's wisdom, his grasp of the situation far surpassed Gu Yazi's. Ha! Chu Yunan looked at Gan Tianqing and said, The younger generation will surpass the older. I can meet Xianming's people. However, I'm not here to discuss anything. Instead, I'm here to fight with Xianming's men. If you can convince this old man, then we'll talk about it again. Otherwise, haha, let's not talk about it. We're members of the Chu family. So what if we die here? Chapter 564. Fight with Xianming's people? Chu Yunan's words made all the members of the Gu family slightly stunned. It seemed that the people of the Chu family were not willing to bow their heads easily. Huh, Gan Tianqing smiled. Make friends through martial arts. The strong are respected. What Mr. Chu said made sense. If Xianming loses, he is not qualified to let us join. Guyu, invite the cultivators of Xianming. Yes, Guyu answered. Now that Chu Yunnan had spoken, Gan Tianqing didn't give him a chance to regret. He directly asked Guyu to invite Sumo, Yu Wuji, and the others. Gan Tianqing knew that Xianming would never be defeated. Chu Yunnan's expression didn't change. He was in the middle stage of the breaking world. In the whole Chu family, he was the second best, except for the family master. Among the cultivators of Xianming, even the first elder, who was the strongest, didn't dare to say that he could defeat him. Therefore, Chu Yunnan was not afraid. However, if the people of Xianming could defeat him, the Chu family didn't mind talking with the people of Xianming. A wise man submits to circumstances. Of course, he knew the importance of the current situation. The Gu family had agreed to join Xianming, and the Sanin family had collapsed. Of course, the Chu family wouldn't bear everything, but he wanted to fight for the best interests of the Chu family. Gan Tianqing understood this better than anyone else. In an instant, Guyu had led Sumo, Yu Wuji, Long Wansheng, and the others into the hall. Chu Yunnan couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He knew Yu Wuji and Long Wansheng. They were the two most outstanding leaders of Xianming in the past 10,000 years. However, he had never seen Sumo before. The late stage of the breaking world? Chu Yunnan couldn't help but take a deep breath. Was that black-clothed cultivator the person that Gu Yazi said could suppress the three Nans? At that moment, the ones who were the most shocked were Chu Fei and Chu Yan. They had not received the news that Sumo had come out of seclusion. It had to be known that in just 200 years, Sumo had won 2 levels in the break world. That was almost impossible. However, the impossible had happened. Chu Fei and Chu Yun stared blankly at Sumo. Sumo nodded with a smile. Master Chu, long time no see. Yu Wuji and Long Wansheng greeted Chu Yunnan first. Alliance Leader Yu, Alliance Leader Long, how have you been? Chu Yunnan also stood up with a smile and returned the salute. However, most of his attention was on Sumo. At this moment, Chu Yun had already sent him a voice transmission. The cultivator who entered the mysterious tomb back then, Chu Yunnan was also shocked. What kind of power could make a break world cultivator level up 2 levels in just 200 years? The later stage of the break world was a bottleneck. Many cultivators in the ancient Shu land dreamed of it, but they could not break through. This is City Master Su of the Chaotic Godland. Yu Wuji introduced. Greetings, Old Chu. Sumo bowed. Greetings, City Master Su. Chu Yunnan looked at Sumo seriously. He was even more surprised. The Chaotic Godland had such a powerful being. Plus, Sumo had an indescribable temperament that made people want to obey her. That was not the release of pressure, but an innate, nameless power. Alliance Leader Yu, Alliance Leader Long. I think you know what Old Chu wants, Gan Tianqing said with a smile. What do you think? The guest follows the host, Yu Wuji said with a smile. We are in the 3 Nans. Old Chu is half a master of the Gu family. As long as Old Chu is sincere, we can discuss his request. I wonder who from the Chu family will fight. Ha. Chu Yunnan nodded. Alliance Leader Yu, you are straightforward. Except for the family master of the Chu family, my cultivation is not bad. Of course, I will fight in person to test Xianming's sincerity. Oh, ha. Yu Wuji nodded. As expected, Chu Yunnan wanted to fight in person. In fact, among the people in Xianming, only Yu Wuji could fight Chu Yunnan. However, Yu Wuji had to use the power that Azure Demon had given her. However, if he did that, he would probably kill Chu Yunnan. If he killed Chu Yunnan, it would be impossible for the Chu family to enter Xianming. So, Chu Yunnan gave Xianming a difficult problem. He had to win, but he couldn't kill her. This meant that the opponent's realm was very high. As far as Chu Yunnan knew, there was no such person in Xianming. At this time, Sumo smiled and took a step forward. In this fight, I will fight for Xianming. City Master Su, Chu Yunnan couldn't help but smile. At the same time, she emphasized the words City Master Su. I just said it clearly. I want to fight with people from Xianming. City Master Su, you are from the Chaotic Gods continent. How can you count? Ha. Sumo also smiled. Chu Yunan's reason was within his expectation. So, Sumo turned around and said to Yu Wuji and Long Wancheng, alliance leaders, I am in the late stage of breaking world. I want to join Xianming. I want to be an elder of Xianming. Is that okay? Huh. Yu Wuji and Long Wancheng laughed at the same time. City Master Su wants to join Xianming. It is what we want, Yu Wuji said and took out a token from his pocket. It was carved with Xianming. This is the token of an elder of Xianming. Sumo bowed and took it with both hands. Then, she looked at Chu Yunan with a smile. Old Chu, what do you think now? Chu Yunan didn't look angry at all. Instead, she smiled and nodded. Then, she said to Yu Wuji, Alliance leader Yu, if you don't have a proper title, you won't be able to do it. Today, I made City Master Su an elder of Xianming. Does that count as a merit in the future? Oh, when Yu Wuji heard that, he couldn't help but laugh. Of course, old Chu deserves the credit. Haha, good. Elder Su, let's go outside. Chu Yunan laughed and invited. Then, she turned around and said to Gu Yazi, Brother Gu, please arrange a place for the fight. Okay, please. Gu Yazi waved his hand. The fighting field of the Gu family was in the southeast of the villa. It was a very open field. The area was covered with ruins. The defense of the break world completely covered the whole area. Usually, the cultivators of the Gu family often practiced here. Everyone arrived at the field. Chu Yunan gently landed in the middle of the field, and Sumo followed. Old Chu, I have something to say. Sumo said. Elder Su, please go ahead. Chu Yunan said. Old Chu, if I lose this round, I will leave the Sanan land immediately. In the future, Sumo will not intervene in the affairs of the Sanan land. At the same time, I will give you a reincarnation level divine weapon to show my apology. Reincarnation level divine weapon? The Gu family, the Chu family, and even the cultivators of Xianming were shocked. Because, looking at the entire ancient Shu continent, there might not be a reincarnation level divine weapon. Haha. In fact, they all thought too much. Except for the 3 beggar treasures, it seemed that Sumo didn't have any reincarnation level divine weapons. Anyway, he wouldn't lose, so he just made a big deal. When Chu Yunan heard that, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that he was determined to win. Elder Su, what if I lose? Chu Yunan's mind was extremely calm, because some words had to be said in advance. If Old Chu loses, I will ask Old Chu to promise a marriage, Sumo said with a smile. Chapter 565. A Marriage. Chu Yunan could not help but be slightly stunned. Whose marriage? The marriage between Miss Gu Xing and Mr. Chu Fei. Sumo smiled. As soon as she said that, Gu Xing could not help but blush. Chu Fei was also a little shy. The matter between Gu Xing and Chu Fei was not a secret to the Gu family and the Chu family. However, it was the first time someone had said it in public. At this time, Gu Yazi and Gu Qingyang were both smiling. Obviously, Sumo had already discussed it with them. Otherwise, Sumo would not have brought it up rashly. Huh. When Chu Yunan heard Sumo's words, he could not help but laugh. Elder Su, you have thought it through. Well, if you can beat me, I will propose marriage for Fei today. Besides, the girl from the Gu family is really good. As for the other affairs of the Chu family, I can also make half of the decisions. These words were said with deep meaning. However, Chu Fei's expression changed slightly, because for a moment, he did not know whether he should hope that the first grandpa would lose or win. In fact, Chu Yunan knew that if he lost, Sumo would want the Chu family to join the Xianming. However, Sumo did not say it directly. The marriage between the Gu family and the Chu family was a euphemistic expression. In this way, even if Chu Yunan lost, he would take care of the face of the Chu family to the greatest extent. Now, the marriage between the Gu family and the Chu family was the best way to join the Xianming. Elder Chu, you are straightforward. Please. Sumo made an inviting gesture. In terms of realm, Sumo was better than Chu Yunan, so he did not make the first move. In fact, if this battle was only in terms of realm, it would not make much sense. The outcome of the battle between the middle stage of the breaking world and the late stage of the breaking world was already clear. However, the people of the Chu family needed a reason. Otherwise, they would not be able to convince themselves. After all, the Sanan family had been independent of the Xianmeng for millions of years. They had their own pride and freedom. There were many things that could not be broken just because one wanted to. In the end, everything was still a battle of strength. Without a powerhouse like Sumo, the Chu family and the Gu family would never lower their heads to Xianmeng. Please. Who? Chu Yunan said please and didn't stand on ceremony at all. At this time, he knew he did not have the right to be polite. After all, he was only in the middle stage of the break world. In an instant, Chu Yunan flew up and flicked his long sleeves. A break world power went towards Sumo. It was a very common magic art, but Chu Yunan had practiced it to the extreme. Ordinary moves also had the power to kill. That was enough to kill an early-stage break world god. Chu Yunan did not hold back at all. From the start of the first move, he went all out. In the arena, a strong gust of wind rose. Even with the break world protection, the entire battleground was buzzing. The cultivators watching the battle held their breaths. Although it was just a battle that might not result in life and death, the battle between them represented the highest level of the ancient Shu continent. The hurricane was like a knife, and the sleeves were like clouds. However, Sumo's face did not change. She still wore a smile. Fundamentally speaking, with Sumo's combat capability, cultivators below the Extermination Sea realm could not pose much of a threat to him. Plus, Chu Yunan was only in the middle stage of the break world. Who? Sumo waved one hand and used the same move to fight back against Chu Yunan. It was a competition of absolute power. Boom! The two powers collided. Colorful lights splashed everywhere, and the sound was like thunder. If the battleground array did not dissolve most of the sound would have echoed all over the Red Desert. Even so, the entire Red City was still filled with thunder-like roars. The cultivators in the Red City could not help but look in the direction of the Gu family's villa. They looked again. In the battleground, Chu Yunan's body was moving backward to dissolve the opponent's power. Sumo was standing on the ground, looking calm. She did not move at all. This time, Sumo obviously had the upper hand. Chu Yunan was shocked. At the same time, the spell in her hand changed. Sizzle, sizzle. He grabbed the air with one hand, and an illusionary long spear appeared in his hand. The long spear was shining, and the colorful lights were dazzling. Condensed chi into a weapon. That was a very advanced fighting technique. The whole long spear was actually condensed by the power of the break world. Such a god weapon was not as hard as a refined god weapon, but its flexibility and control were far better than ordinary god weapons. Plus, not every break world cultivator could raise a god weapon like that. Such a god weapon could not be formed without 10,000 years of nourishment. Elder Su, I am sorry, Chu Yunan said. Then he raised the long spear in his hand and thrust it towards Sumo's chest. That long spear had already formed a vortex in the air. The power of this move was 2 or 3 times stronger than the previous one. The long spear broke the air, and it was unstoppable. All the cultivators watching the battle were weighing whether they could block this move. Except for Gan Tianqing and Yu Wuji, among all the cultivators present, only Gu Yazi was confident that she could take this move. As for the rest, they didn't think they could withstand one move from Chu Yunan. Sumo also praised in her heart. The cultivators of the Sanan family are indeed extraordinary. Chu Yunan was the top expert of the Sanan family. However, Sumo was still calm. He turned his body slightly, but he was as fast as lightning. In the void, there was almost only a shadow of Sumo. The vortex brought by the long spear seemed to sweep past Sumo. However, Sumo was not affected at all. At the same time, Sumo's hand shook, and the broken bamboo pole appeared in his hand. Since Chu Yunan used a weapon, Sumo did not want him to lose too badly. Whoosh! Sumo shook his wrist, and the broken bamboo pole directly pointed at Chu Yunan's long spear. This move was very interesting. As for the broken bamboo pole, Sumo did not know its origin, but his 3 beggar treasures were all peerless divine weapons. Because no matter how high Sumo's realm was, those three treasures seemed to be suitable for him. Puff! Sumo speed was so fast that Chu Yunan had no time to change his move. The broken bamboo pole happened to touch Chu Yunan's long spear. When the two collided, there was no sound of explosion. The broken bamboo pole directly pierced through Chu Yunan's long spear like a knife cutting through tofu. Chu Yunan was shocked, because it meant that the bamboo pole in Sumo's hand should be at least a samsara-level magic treasure. In fact, this move was enough for Sumo to shatter Chu Yunan's long spear and seriously injure Chu Yunan's divine soul. However, Chu Yunan did not expect that Sumo would leave as soon as he touched it. All of a sudden, Sumo's figure retreated swiftly, like moving clouds and flowing water. In the eyes of many cultivators, it was as if Sumo's bamboo pole had been shaken off by Chu Yunan's long spear. Outside the arena, Guyazi could not help but sigh. Fortunately, the Gu family chose to join Xianming. Otherwise, Su Mo would have been able to flatten the Gu family by himself. Because according to the situation just now, it could be said that Sumo had won. However, he was still giving face to the Chu family. Gan Tianqing and Yu Wuji looked as usual, because everything was within their expectations. If the current Su Mo could not handle such a battle with ease, then he would not be worthy of being called the Demon Lord or the Dark Lord. At this moment, Chu Yunan raised his eyebrows and his expression changed slightly. In an instant, the long spear in his hand disappeared, because this spear was useless. At the same time, he formed a special spell. Whoosh, whoosh! In an instant, a clear pool appeared under Chu Yunan's feet. Tianhu? The cultivators of the Gu family could not help but change their expressions. Chapter 566. The Chu family called the Tianhu Lake the Sacred Lake. It was a big lake with a radius of 800 miles. However, it was usually calm and tranquil. If one looked down from the sky, the Tianhu Lake was like a bright mirror embedded in the land of the south of Chuan. Therefore, the lake was also called the Divine Mirror of the Tianhu Lake. The Tianhu Lake was the biggest support of the Chu family. The water of the Tianhu Lake contained endless spirit power. People could get twice the result with half the effort if they cultivated there. Countless cultivators of the Chu family had used the Tianhu Lake to reach the Great Path. Many rare treasures had appeared in the Tianhu Lake. The Chu family had benefited a lot. The Tianhu Lake was magical. The people of the ancient Shu only knew how wide it was, but they didn't know how deep it was. It was said that the Tianhu Lake was unfathomable. No one knew where it was connected to. The Chu family had a secret skill that connected them to the Tianhu Lake and instantly gained power. However, only the top cultivators of the Chu family could use that skill. Chu Yunan was, of course, the top cultivator of the Chu family. That was why his skill connected to the Tianhu Lake. In other words, he had captured the water of the Tianhu Lake. Chu Yunan shouted, using the Tianhu Lake, divine mirror attaching to the soul. Whoosh, whoosh! In an instant, the small Tianhu Lake under Chu Yunan's feet suddenly surged and formed a deep whirlpool. Inside the whirlpool, there seemed to be thousands of power pouring into Chu Yunan's Yongquan acupuncture point. Sizzle, sizzle. The spirit power could make sounds and even take shape. At the same time, the hazy water vapor covered Chu Yunan. Looking at him again, his aura had changed. His realm and power had increased in an instant. The middle stage of the breaking world, the late stage of the breaking world, and the complete breaking world. The scene left all the cultivators of the scene dumbfounded. The Gu family had only heard that the Chu family had the ability to connect to the Tianhu Lake and borrow the power of the Tianhu Lake, but they didn't know the details. The Chu family knew the secret skill, but it was the first time they had seen a member of the Chu family increase his realm by 2 small realms like Chu Yunan. After all, the Sanan family had been living in peace, and no one could force Chu Yunan to use such a powerful skill. Xianming's people didn't expect the Chu family to have such a powerful secret method. Yu Wuji frowned slightly. This kind of secret technique had long existed in the 3 realms, and the most famous was Shun Yan's secret technique. In the past, Shen Yin had borrowed the power of the supreme ghost god's face, and at the cost of her lifespan, she had even been able to advance several realms. However, Chu Yunan's Dharma spell seemed gentler and not as overbearing as Shen Yan's. However, both of them achieved the same result through different means. Sumo looked at everything. Although she was fearless, she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Chu Yunan was serious about it. It seemed that Chu Yunan didn't want to be defeated no matter what. In fact, the Chu family had already thought of joining Xianmeng, but Chu Yunan still had her own pride in front of victory. This was probably the most powerful secret technique of the Chu family. If Chu Yunan couldn't defeat Sumo with the help of the divine mirror of Tianhu, there was no other way. However, this kind of Dharma spells was nothing in Sumo's eyes. In Sumo's memory, he could use at least dozens of methods to forcibly increase his realm, but it was not necessary, because this kind of forcible increase came with a price. Most of the time, the loss outweighed the gain. Whoosh! At this time, Chu Yunan made a seal again. The lake water under his feet suddenly rose more than 10 feet. Although it was just a pool of water, there was an endless supply of water. Tianhu Dragon Trap, Chu Yunan shouted again. The lake water turned into several water dragons, circled up in the blink of an eye, and directly entangled Sumo. The lake water contained endless power to break through the boundary. Huh! Sumo's eyebrows relaxed, and then he smiled slightly. Elder Chu, I'm sorry. When he looked again, Sumo's body rose into the air and went straight to the void. And the lake water that Chu Yunan summoned followed like a shadow, chasing after her. Sizzle. The speed of the lake water seemed to be faster, and in an instant, it entangled Sumo's feet and calves. It was like many water ribbons trying to tie up Sumo and pull him down into the void. Sumo looked calm, and he had already made a seal. In terms of the profoundness of the Dharma spells, no one in the whole Pure Land could compare with Sumo, let alone Chu Yunan. Netherworld, all rivers returned to the sea. It was a Dharma spell of the Netherworld Lord. When he looked again, black light suddenly appeared on Sumo's body, especially his legs, which emitted endless black light. At that moment, it seemed that Chu Yunan's water dragon had fixed Sumo in the void dozens of feet high. However, only Chu Yunan knew that it was actually Sumo who had pulled his water dragon in the void. Chu Yunan wanted to pull back the water dragon and even cut it off. However, Sumo did not give him that chance. Chu Yunan did not understand why he was still no match for Sumo in terms of power, even though he had the upper hand in terms of his realm. There seemed to be endless power in Sumo's body, which was as endless as the sea. The power of immortality and the soul of immortality. Chu Yunan could not compete with it at all. The most frightening thing was that Chu Yunan suddenly felt that his power was constantly fading away. Sumo's Dharma spell could absorb his power. Whoosh, splash, the water of the heavenly lake had been slightly green. However, everyone could clearly see that the water dragon, which was dozens of feet long, was turning black at a speed visible to the naked eye from under Sumo's feet. The cultivators of the Chu family all turned pale. At that moment, Chu Yunan's soul was greatly shaken, because Sumo had not only frozen the power of his heavenly lake, but he was also absorbing the power of the heavenly lake. However, Chu Yunan was completely unable to cut it off at this moment. He was completely controlled by Sumo's power. He could not do anything. Whoosh, splash, the water dragon turned into a black dragon. Chu Yunan's realm began to drop rapidly. Perfect breaking world, late breaking world, middle breaking world. That scene once again shocked all the ancient Shu cultivators. It was a complete reversal of the previous advancement process. Even Yuuji and Gan Tianqing were surprised. They could only sigh in their hearts. The Netherworld secret technique was truly profound. Fortunately, after Chu Yunan's level dropped to the middle stage of the break world, it did not drop any further. Otherwise, his cultivation would be crippled by Sumo. Sumo had shown mercy by only drawing the power of the Tianhu Lake that Chu Yunan had borrowed. However, the lake under Chu Yunan's feet had also turned black in an instant. 3 to 5 breaths of time was fine. However, After 5 breaths, the lake under Chu Yunan's feet began to shrink. The members of the Chu family looked very pale, and Chu Yunan turned pale with fright. The power of the divine mirror of the heavenly lake was inexhaustible. The lake under Chu Yunan's feet was a miniature version of the Tianhu Lake. Sumo was drawing the real water of the Tianhu Lake, which was theoretically impossible, because it was enough to kill a cultivator in the break world. Even a cultivator in the extermination sea could not do that, let alone a cultivator in the break world. However, at this time, Sumo was floating in the void, safe and sound. That scene was too terrifying. According to the situation, it would not take long for Sumo to completely drain the water of the Tianhu Lake through Chu Yunan. I admit defeat, Chu Yunan shouted directly. He did not dare to bet the entire Tianhu Lake. The corners of Sumo's mouth curled up when he heard that. Right at this moment, the space outside the martial arts arena fluctuated violently. Then a cultivator covered in blood rushed out. Ancestral Master, the Chu family is in danger, the cultivator shouted and fell to the ground. His blood splashed all over the ground. Chapter 567. Suemo was the winner of this battle, because Chu Yunan had admitted defeat just now. But at the last moment, everyone was shocked by the cultivator who barged in. The Gu family's villa was not a place that could be entered casually. Besides, it was a cultivator who was covered in blood. He must have used a special teleportation technique to enter the Chu family. At this time, Chu Fei's movements were extremely fast because he clearly saw who that cultivator was. Chu Shan. Chu Fei flew over and carried Chu Shan in his arms, ignoring the fact that he was covered in blood. Then he pressed his Dan Si with one hand and poured divine burial chi into it. However, Chu Fei's expression changed drastically. Chu Shan's Dan Si had been shattered. There was nothing he could do. Big brother, you don't have to save me. Chu Shan used the divine burial chi to open his eyes, but he was already on the verge of death. The Yin Mountain Lung clan has attacked the Chu family. Go back. At this point, Chu Shan took his last breath. Chu Shan was an outstanding third-generation disciple of the Chu family. He was an early-stage divine burial chi cultivator, but his Dan Si had been shattered by someone's spiritual power. No one knew how he managed to escape and make it to the Gu family's villa. However, the battle with the Chu family was bound to be tragic. The Yin clan had attacked the Chu family. This was something that many cultivators had not expected. Moreover, the battle between the two families was enough to alarm the entire Shu South. However, the Gu family had not received any news. There was only one possibility. An extremely powerful cultivator had used absolute power to seal off the entire area controlled by the Chu family. That was terrifying. Everyone, the family is in an emergency. Everything will be discussed later. I'll take my leave. Chu Yunan's eyes were bloodshot. Breaking out of the encirclement and sending a message meant that the Chu family was in danger. The Chu family could not even send a message through the teleportation array. Otherwise, there was no need for this. Chu Shan was an early-stage divine burial chi cultivator. Moreover, the Chu family had Realmbreaker. Could they not send a message? The Yin clan? Chu Yunan's face tensed up. In fact, they had only been away from the Chu family for 3 days. The actions of the Yin family could be said to be as swift as lightning. In fact, if this was the case, they would be of limited use even if they returned. However, Chu Yunan would rather die than go back and fight. Elder Chu, please wait a moment. Gu Yazi stopped Chu Yunan and then turned to Gu Qingyang, saying, Qingyang, pass the order immediately. All the god-burying realm cultivators of the Gu family in the manor immediately gathered. After that, you'll personally lead the troops to reinforce the Chu family. I'm going to oversee Red City. The Yin clan had made a move on the Chu family, and they might even make a move on the Gu family. Yes, Gu Qingyang did not hesitate and immediately disappeared to gather the troops. Thank you. Chu Yunan cupped her hands towards Gu Yazi and said nothing. At this time, there was no need to say anything. The Chu family definitely needed help. At this time, Yuwuji had already spread the news of the attack on the Chu family through the array. It could be said that this was explosive news. The Sanan family had coexisted for millions of years. Although there had been some small disagreements, there had been almost no large-scale conflicts between the families. The Gu family, the Chu family, and the Yin family had always had a good relationship, supporting each other. The situation of the Sanan family was very balanced. Sumo's arrival and Gan Tianqing's awakening broke this balance in a sense. However, the Gu family had never thought of dominating the whole family. In fact, the Chu family hadn't either. Unfortunately, the Yin clan of Cold Mountain was different. Back then, Guyu was right, the Yin clan of Cold Mountain had always been secretly nurturing their power, full of ambition. The Gu family and the Chu family were slightly on guard. However, neither the Chu family nor the Gu family had expected the Yin clan to act so quickly. Elder Chu, our people from Xianming will go with you. At the same time, I've already notified Xianming that the two immortal families closest to the Sanan family will reinforce the Gu family and the Chu family as soon as possible, said Alliance Master Yu. Sigh. Chu Yunan let out a long sigh. Alliance Master Yu, Elder Su, thank you. As long as our Chu family doesn't perish, we will definitely join Xianming. If we perish, the Chu family will also remember this kindness. Elder Chu, don't worry, Yu Wuji said. Let's go first. The Yin clan of Cold Mountain can't swallow the Chu family so quickly. However, if we arrive earlier, one less member of the Chu family might die. All right, Elder Chu nodded. At this time, all the soul burial cultivators in the Gu family villa had gathered, including Gu Qingyang, Gu Yu, and Gu Xing. The Gu family had a total of 20 people. This was almost all the elites of the Gu family. Gu Yazi didn't make a move. If the Yin clan attacked, he, Gu Shengzi, and the two ancestors were enough to resist. Gu Yu and Gu Xing directly opened the strongest teleportation formation in Red City. Sumo, Yu Wuji, Chu Yunan, Gan Tianqing, and the others directly entered the formation and went straight to Tianhu. Tianhu, the Chu family. Among the Sanan families, the Chu family was in the middle, the Gu family in the west, and the Yin clan in the east. Their respective territories were measured in millions of square kilometers, which could be said to be extremely vast. Each of their territories had a different number of Hongshan families, and these families were all dependent on them. The relationship between the Sanan families and them was similar to the relationship between a king and a vassal. The other families of the three major families followed their lead. However, these families had a lot of autonomy. That day, Chu Yunan took Chu Fei, Chu Yun, and the others to the Gu family, which was the decision of the entire Chu family. Before that, they had actually made all kinds of plans and speculated about all kinds of possibilities. Chu Yunan could make the decision on behalf of the Chu family, and the Chu family could represent the other Hongshan families. However, they only speculated about the current situation of the Gu family, but ignored the Yin clan of Cold Mountain. Everything happened too suddenly. One of the most important factors was that a Hongshan family closest to the Cold Mountain, the Hao family, had betrayed the Chu family. The Hao family was adjacent to the Yin mountain, and it was an important family of the Chu family. Usually, this family was responsible for guarding the Yin clan of Cold Mountain and even the affairs of the eastern side of the Chu family. However, the Yin clan of Cold Mountain had secretly broken through this obstacle. The Hao family had been a chess piece of the Yin clan for a long time. With the Hao family as a spy, the eastern gate of the Chu family was open wide. The night Chu Yunan and the others left the Chu family, the Yin clan had secretly crossed the boundary between the two families. They secretly gathered in the territory of the Hao family. There were two mountains north and south of the Sky Lake. They were called Wang Lake, South Wang Lake, and North Wang Lake. They were the cultivation places of the Chu family. That night it was dusk. The people of the Hao family took the lead. The Chu family did not guard against them, and they killed the guards of the Sky Lake Array with lightning speed. The people of the Yin clan were teleported to the edge of the Sky Lake. The three guests of the Yin clan were there. In addition, there were 4 Break World cultivators. Aside from them, The most important person was the black-clothed old man who had come back from the Bitterwheel Sea on a wooden boat. He was a true break-world cultivator. As soon as he left the array, he took out something and stuck it next to the sky lake. "Children, if you don't surrender, kill." The black-clothed old man coldly smiled. His eyes were full of bloodthirst. Chapter 568. Whoosh, whoosh, kill. In an instant, the 3,000 elite Een family cultivators dispersed. Battle cries soared to the sky. The black-robed old man coldly stood where he was, not moving at all. At that moment, his black robes fluttered in the wind, making him look like a god of death. With him as the center, layers of black clouds covered the entire Chu family. In the sky above the sky lake and the south-gazing lake, a layer of indistinct black mist had formed. And the thing he had stuck into the side of the lake was actually a wooden stick. The wooden stick was completely black, and the part that was exposed to the surface was no more than a foot or so long. On the surface of the wooden stick, strange runes flowed. It was a special magic treasure. Under its effect, the entire lake seemed to have frozen into a thin layer of black ice. At this moment, all the cultivators of the Chu family were startled awake. However, in such a short time, they still couldn't figure out what was going on. The 3,000 cultivators of the Een family were like eagles in the night sky, swooping down on their prey. The 4 break-world cultivators of the Een family were like 4 giant axes. They broke the Chu family. It was already as bright as day on the north and south lookout lake. The mystic lights of all kinds of magical treasures were as bright as stars. However, if one were to look at the periphery of the core area of the Chu family, they would only see a faint layer of black clouds. The Tianhu Lake and the Gazing Lake Mountain were separated by a magical barrier. The Een clan had always been the strongest among the Sanin clans. However, the Chu family was not weak either. Everyone knew the Een family had 8 break worlds. The Chu family had 6. Chu Yunan went to the Gu family as a diplomatic envoy. Theoretically, the Chu family had at least 5 break world elites. Strangely, at this moment, no break world cultivator from the Chu family came out to fight. The most powerful member of the Chu family was only at the peak of the Burying God stage. Thus, it became a massacre. In front of break world, they could not withstand a single blow. That night was a catastrophe that the Chu family had never experienced in the past millions of years. On the north and south lookout lake, blood flowed like a river. The cultivators of the Chu family fell one after another like crops being harvested. There were nearly 20,000 cultivators in the Chu family, but in less than 4 hours, more than half of them had died. Hee hee. Almost none of the cultivators of the Chu family surrendered. Regardless of their realms, their eyes were bloodshot. At the last moment, countless cultivators chose to self-detonate. All of this could be said to be tragic and stirring. The black-robed elder of the Een clan hadn't moved, but a faint smile appeared on his face. Everything was going according to his plan and control. At the same time, all of the Chu family's soul energy gathered into the wooden stick in front of him. Then, through the wooden stick's transformation, it turned into sealing power. The layer of black ice on the lake seemed to be getting thicker and thicker. At this moment, the 400-kilometer-wide lake had completely turned into a black mirror. The black-robed old man looked at the heavenly lake and smiled. "Chu Tianlang, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to see me again. However, being buried in the heavenly lake is a worthy death." Ha ha ha, ha. The black-robed old man threw his head back and laughed. As he laughed, the cultivators of the Chu family continued to be slaughtered. Crack, crack. At that moment, a crack suddenly appeared on the black ice of the Tianhu Lake. Under the heavenly lake, there seemed to be some kind of power surging, trying to break the ice. Huh. The black-robed old man smiled coldly. It seemed that the people of the Chu family were quite capable. Under such a seal, he was still able to break out of the ice? At this moment, the black-robed old man's cold smile grew. Crack, whoosh. At this moment, the center of the heavenly lake suddenly exploded, and a figure broke the ice. The world-breaking chi instantly dispersed. A tall and burly cultivator rushed out. The middle stage of the world-breaking chi. Chu Tianlang. The black-robed old man raised his eyebrows and humphed coldly. With his cold snort, he had already made his move. He made a grabbing motion with one hand, and 3 black spears materialized in the air. This was much better than Chu Yunan's condensed chi into a weapon. Kill! The 3 black spears all carried the power of the world-breaking chi. They stabbed at Chu Tianlang from 3 different directions. At this time, the ice under Chu Tianlang's feet suddenly closed again. It wasn't that the cultivators of the Chu family under the heavenly lake didn't want to break the ice, but that they weren't strong enough. Just now, they had to work together to break the ice and send Chu Tianlang out. The other cultivators under the heavenly lake were still trapped inside. Soldier, you're not dead? Chu Tianlang was furious. At the same time, he took out a treasure. It was a black mountain rock. The rock expanded in the wind and turned into a small mountain in an instant. Boom! Crack! The 3 spears hit the small mountain. Spiritual chi scattered and colorful lights shot into the sky. As for the black mountain, it was shaking incessantly. Chu Tianlang's expression changed. The black mountain was a treasure of the Chu family. Haha, if you don't die, how can I die? Today, we will settle the score for what happened in the heaven ditch back then. I came back alive, and you're not dead. Let your entire family die with you. Technique, Soul's Rage. The soldier's black robe billowed. He raised his hands, but it wasn't a hand seal. Instead, he put his hands forward like a zombie. At the same time, the soldier's eyes turned gray. Suddenly, the air around the heavenly lake was filled with a strange aura of death. A cold wind blew, and ghosts cried and wolves howled. Chu Tianlang's expression changed. It wasn't a power he could resist. A cultivator at the world-breaking chi level could crush the entire ancient Shu continent. Moreover, the soldier's aura was too special. Soldier, you're not a real cultivator? You're dead, Chu Tianlang shouted, his eyes filled with fear. Then, an endless aura of death rushed toward him like countless whirling dragons. Chu Tianlang knew that he would definitely fall in this battle. When he looked again, Chu Tianlang bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of soul blood. Whoosh! Blood mist filled the air. The golden red soul blood scattered like stars in the sky. Suppress! Chu Tianlang shouted. The blood mist dispersed, blocking the dragon-like aura of death. However, he knew that it could only last for a moment. Chu Tianlang formed another Taoist technique. Boom! Crack! The black mountain hovering above his head buzzed and then exploded. This once again formed a shockwave that spread outwards like a water wheel. However, self-preservation or injury were not Chu Tianlang's goals. The reason for that was because a figure had appeared from within the Black Mountain. At the same time, a strange teleportation formation appeared beneath his feet. The soldier raised an eyebrow. He didn't expect a young cultivator to be hiding in the Chu family's treasure. It was Chu Shan. However, everything happened in an instant. The almighty members of the Chu family under the Tianhu Lake had already prepared for the worst. So, when Chu Tianlang broke the ice, he had already prepared for the worst. The Chu family had to send the news out. Otherwise, the north and south-gazing lakes and mountains would be destroyed. None of the Chu family members here would be able to survive. Shen Bing snorted coldly, then waved his hand. An extremely strong power of a perfect world breaker formed a 7-foot-long sword that headed toward Chu Shan. However, Chu Tianlang moved to block in front of Chu Shan. Puff! Chu Tianlang's body was pierced, but the sword's power did not diminish. It went on to hit Chu Shan. However, Chu Tianlang's blocking had consumed some of the Black Sword's power. Even so, Chu Shan groaned, but he was still teleported out. He was the Chu family's last hope. Chapter 569. Boom! Bang! Chu Shan's figure disappeared, and the formation closed. The soldier wanted to give chase, but it was too late. He could not help but raise his eyebrows as he glared viciously at Chu Tianlang, who was frozen in midair. The Yin soldier's eyes were still gray. Chu Tianlong's organs had been destroyed, but he still had a breath of immortal qi. Old Yin monster, you are already a corpse. Chu Tianlang used the last of his strength to clench his teeth and glared at the Yin soldier. Huh, Chu Tianlang, I may be a corpse, but I'm also a corpse that will bury your entire Chu family. Don't die yet. I want you to witness the destruction of the Chu family. Seal. A strange smile appeared on Yin Shinbing's face as he waved his hand. The power of the seal froze Chu Tianlang in the air again. However, this time, his entire body seemed to be pressed into a flat space. Chu Tianlong's soul was sealed by the Yin soldier. However, his senses were still there. Chu Tianlang would not die in a short while, but once the seal was broken, Chu Tianlang would not die. Once the seal was broken, he would die immediately. To Chu Tianlang, it was a form of torture. Old Yin monster, you'll die a horrible death. Chu Tianlang cursed. Ha! Didn't you say that I'm dead? I will die a good death now. The Yin soldier's expression was as ferocious as a zombie's. Kill my children. Kill every single member of the Chu family. I want their souls to nourish my sacred tree. Who can stop the blooming of the sacred tree? Ha ha ha! The Yin soldier seemed to have lost his mind. Meanwhile, the Yin family's massacre of the Chu family was still ongoing. On the north-south lookout lake, all the god-burying cultivators of the Chu family were killed. Now, the Chu family's 4 Breakworld warriors were behind Yin soldier. Because the remaining Chu family cultivators no longer needed to be personally dealt with. The dead souls of the Chu family members poured into the strange black stick. The radiance of the blackwood stick became brighter and brighter. At the same time, the ice on the lake of the Chu family was getting thicker and thicker. There was nothing wrong with the Yin soldier's information. The Chu family's Breakworld cultivators practiced in the sky lake all year round. People said the Chu family had caves and palaces under the sky lake. Every once in a while, the Chu family would select a few direct disciples to enter the Tianhu lake to cultivate. Therefore, the Yin soldier chose to seal the lake as soon as he arrived. Chu Tianlang was sealed in the void, his heart filled with endless sorrow. As the patriarch with the highest seniority in the Chu family, he could only watch helplessly as the Chu family was annihilated. That kind of torture was unimaginable, but there was nothing he could do. At this moment, he hoped that the last elites of the Chu family would not break the ice and come out. Shushan did not know if he could call for help. None of them could stop the Yin soldier. Perfect break world. Actually, he was an existence that was invincible in the ancient Shu continent. Chu Tianlang did not know what had happened to the Yin soldier, but he could feel the death aura of the Yin soldier. Back in the sky ditch, he had seen the Yin soldier fall into the sky ditch to fight for a treasure. Theoretically, he should have died. The Yin soldier must have had a miracle. Sizzle, sizzle. At this time, the blackwood stick stuck in the sky lake made a sizzling sound. Countless souls looked like they were being fried. The blackwood had grown more than a foot. The Yin soldier's eyes were no longer gray, but his gaze was still cold. Set up the formation. The battle cries of the North and South View Lake had died down. The undying and burying god-class cultivators of the Chu family had been slaughtered. Although the battle was still going on, there was not much energy left. So, the Yin soldier gave a new order. Yes, sir. The 4 Breakworld cultivators replied at the same time. Then, they disappeared at the same time. In an instant, they were floating in the sky above the sky lake. North, south, east, and west, they were about 300 miles away from each other. They stood at the 4 corners of the sky lake. They were all Breakworld cultivators, and all of them were in the middle stage of the Breakworld. With such power, even without the Yin soldier, they were the strongest in the Sanan family. To them, 300 miles was about the same as 30 feet for mortals. Looking again, they began to form hand seals. However, each of their hand seals were different. The hand seals were very strange. At this time, the Yin soldier also started to make hand seals. Divine wood, rise. The Yin soldier shouted. As he made the hand seals, the wood stick stuck in the ground slowly rose. Countless runes flowed on its surface. It really looked like a divine wood. It was about 3 feet long, the length of an ordinary deity's sword. Buzz, buzz, buzz. It vibrated gently and made a strange sound. Then, the blackwood stick floated in the air and slowly moved to the center of the sky lake. The whole process took a long time. The world outside the seal was bright. However, the Chu family was still inside the seal. Chu Tianlang watched everything unfold. He did not know what the Yin soldier was planning. However, he knew that the Yin soldier was preparing a spell. At that moment, the sky lake was covered in a thick layer of ice. It looked like a black, dead lake. The Chu family cultivators at the bottom of the lake did not seem to have the ability to break through the ice. They could not break through. However, judging from the Yin soldier's plan, he would not let the Chu family cultivators in the sky lake go. He was preparing a big spell. The 4 cultivators landed in the middle with a black wooden stick in the middle. The Yin soldier's hand seals changed again. At the same time, his eyes returned to their previous grayish-white appearance. Chu Tianlang, I'm going to show you a great show. I'm going to drain this sky lake and destroy the Chu family cultivators. This divine wood will help me conquer the 3 south regions and conquer the ancient Chu. Ha! Whoosh! As the Yin soldier cast a spell, a gust of wind blew in the air. The surface of the sky lake was covered with wisps of black gas. The black gas must have been extracted from a sky lake. They gradually floated upwards, strand by strand, and finally gathered at the bottom of the black wood. It was absorbing the power of the sky lake. Chu Tianlong's eyes were filled with fear. Although the speed of absorption was not fast, it was much faster than the Chu family cultivators' daily cultivation. That was because the spiritual energy had taken shape. In fact, Chu Tianlang did not have the chance to witness the battle between Sumo and Chu Yunnan. If he had, he would have thought that the Yin soldier's spell was not worth mentioning. However, he had to admit that the Yin soldier's spell was similar to Sumo's. Whoosh! A gust of wind rose above the sky lake. 2 hours later, the blackwood stick did not grow any longer. Instead, it became thicker. It was absorbing the power of the sky lake. As it grew, the speed at which it absorbed the power of the sky lake increased. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. 6 hours later, the blackwood grew into a small black tree that was 3 feet tall. The red leaves were extremely glaring. The leaves looked like they were dyed with blood. However, none of the cultivators present recognized the tree. Chapter 570. Above the lake, spirit light rippled. Gradually, the strange tree began to flourish with leaves. The Yin soldier had a strange smile on his face. The other 4 break-world cultivators of the Yin clan were guarding the area. Chu Tianlang felt that his consciousness was starting to blur. He knew his soul was going to be destroyed, but he still struggled to see what was happening, even if it was a form of torture. The power of the entire heavenly lake was continuously pouring into the strange tree. After an unknown number of hours, boom! Suddenly, the heavenly lake sank. It sounded like the surface of the lake was sinking. The surface of the lake seemed to have dropped by 1 foot. The Yin soldier was shocked. This was not what he had expected. The sinking of the lake meant that its water level had dropped, and its power was being absorbed. However, the Yin soldier did not expect the holy tree to be so overbearing. The speed at which it was absorbing the power of the lake was beyond his imagination. Strangely, the holy tree did not seem to be growing at a rapid pace. The holy tree was still growing at a slow pace. However, as he was not very familiar with the divine tree, he did not know much about it. The Yin soldier did not pay much attention to it. Everything was going according to his plan. The holy tree was only growing a little faster. The spirit chi of the lake was still gathering. Boom! Boom! Following that, 2 icy voices rang out from the sky lake. The 4 break-world cultivators of the Yin clan looked around. The lake had shrunk a lot. It looked like it was about 100 miles wide. What kind of power was that? At that moment, the holy tree seemed to have grown a foot taller. However, The Een soldier was still shocked by the rate at which the holy tree was being consumed. Fortunately, the cold sounds did not come again. From the looks of it, that was the special stage where the divine wood was absorbing the power of the heavenly lake. Everything returned to its original state. There was nothing strange happening in the lake. At that moment, there were not many screams on the north-south lake mountain. Almost 20,000 Chu family cultivators had been killed. There were some Chu family cultivators who were lucky enough to survive, but no one knew where they were hiding. The Een clan's cultivators were still cleaning up the remnants. Looking from afar, the south-gazing lake and north-gazing mountain were covered in blood mist. Regardless of whether the cultivators at the bottom of the Tianhu Lake could survive this battle, the Chu family, which had stood in the south of Chuan province for millions of years, was almost annihilated. This was probably the biggest tragedy in the history of the ancient Shu continent. The Een family cultivators continued to gather around the heavenly lake. The Een family's 3 guests and the other Een family's god of burial had already returned. They were all standing behind Een soldier. They were no longer needed in other battles. More than 20 burial gods and 5 break worlds were gathered there. Compared to the Chu family, the Een clan's casualties were almost negligible. They were all waiting for the divine tree to change. After quite some time, the divine tree had already grown to about 7 feet. Its branches were more numerous and its leaves were more luxuriant. Then, at a speed visible to the naked eye, an extremely beautiful blood-red flower bloomed. Red leaves, red flowers. That tree seemed to have come from the depths of hell. It was a strange flower. Other than Een soldier, even the other cultivators of the Een clan felt that it was ominous. Chu Tianlang was still trying his best to keep his eyes open. He seemed to have seen that flower in the heavenly gutter before. However, it was not a tree back then. It was just scattered petals. However, Chu Tianlang did not know what kind of flower it was. Sizzle. As the red flower bloomed, the spirit chi absorbed from the heavenly lake began to turn from black to red. The wisps of red spirit chi were like rays of blood-red light. The flower on the tree gradually bloomed, and it looked as if it was dripping blood. Een soldier's lips curled up again. Then, he changed the hand seal in his hand. Boom! Looking again, the 7-foot-tall divine tree began to slowly descend. It was originally floating about 1,000 feet above the heavenly lake. Now it was slowly descending. Its roots began to grow at a crazy rate. The roots spread out in all directions. They were blood-red in color, strand by strand. The tree was 7 feet tall, but its roots were hundreds of feet long. The divine tree descended bit by bit. In the end, the tree was only 7 to 8 feet above the surface of the heavenly lake. Its roots had already spread throughout the entire heavenly lake. At that moment, it was as if the entire heavenly lake had nourished the divine tree. Both the Een clan cultivators and Chu Tianlang were deeply shocked by the scene in front of them. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew over the heavenly lake again. The divine tree swayed gently. Instantly, blood splattered all over the sky. Its flowers began to wither. The blood splattered and floated in the air. Above the heavenly lake, between the heavenly lake and the mountains, there were red flowers floating in the air. An extremely sorrowful and ominous aura spread along with the scattering of the red flowers. Ha ha, ha ha. At that moment, the Een soldier laughed maniacally. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and his grayish-white eyes were filled with a cold blood-red light. The divine tree blooms, and the blood souls return. Awaken, my spirit warriors who have been dormant for tens of thousands of years. The Een soldier's hand seal changed again. At that moment, he was like a demon, but also like a god. The Een clan cultivators felt a chill run down their spine. Crack! Boom! The divine tree suddenly sank. The black ice on the heavenly lake completely shattered. The roots of the divine tree were like sharp hooks and swords that pierced deep into the heavenly lake. Gurgle! Gurgle! The roots were like blood vessels that were absorbing the last bit of energy from the heavenly lake. Ah! Looking at the scene, Chu Tianlang felt as if he was being dismembered piece by piece. The ice on the heavenly lake shattered. However, not a single cultivator from the Chu family managed to escape from the heavenly lake. That might mean that they had all died under the heavenly lake. The water level of the heavenly lake began to drop. Although it was not as serious as before, the surface area of the heavenly lake was also shrinking. Ha ha! Ha! The Een soldier's laughter was still echoing in the air. When the red flowers fell, the strange divine tree actually bore fruits. Those fruits were oval in shape. They were only the size of eggs, but half of them were black and the other half were red. There were at least a few hundred fruits on the tree. Red and black light surrounded them. Dead soul fruit. Chu Tianlong's eyes widened. He was shocked beyond belief, because when he saw the fruit, he finally recalled an ancient legend from the ancient Shu continent. The ancient Shu had an end, and the heavenly chasm was boundless. Throughout the ages, countless cultivators from the ancient Shu had died in the heavenly chasm. However, no one knew what was at the bottom of the heavenly chasm, and what happened to those cultivators who died in the heavenly chasm. Those who fell into the heavenly chasm were dead for sure. That was common knowledge. However, there was an ancient legend in the ancient Shu. Those cultivators who died in the heavenly chasm would one day turn into dead soul fruits and return to the mortal world. They would carry the will of God and devour the entire mainland. However, no one had ever believed that legend, just like how mortals did not believe in reincarnation. Wake up, I am a soul warrior. On behalf of God, I will bring you back to the mortal world. The Een soldier clasped his hands together and bowed in the direction of the heavenly chasm. Boom! Crack! The first fruit on the dead soul tree suddenly exploded. An extremely powerful and vicissitude aura permeated the air. Chapter 571. The dead soul fruit bloomed, and the air of death spread. A middle-aged cultivator wearing a red and black cloak stood next to the dead soul tree. The middle-aged cultivator was tall and had long black hair. His face was angular, and he looked like a statue. However, his eyes were gray, and there was no sign of life. He looked like a corpse. At the same time, his body emitted a break-world aura. Middle stage break-world. Chu Tianxing, big brother. Chu Tianlang could not help but scream. The first cultivator to fly out of the dead soul fruit was Chu Tianlong's big brother. Back then, Chu Tianxing died in the sky ditch when he went out to train. However, back then, he was just an undying cultivator. Now he was the burial god. However, Chu Tianxing could not hear Chu Tianlong shout. He stood next to the dead soul tree, stunned. At that moment, he was a puppet that had been resurrected. He only listened to the Een soldier's orders. Hee hee, welcome back, friend Chu. Let's build a world together. The Een soldier laughed eerily, weirdly, and arrogantly. Boom, crack. Then, the dead soul fruit kept exploding. Every dead soul fruit was a break-world cultivator. Plus, those cultivators had died in the sky ditch on the ancient Shu land. They were from the Chu family, the Gu family, the Een family, and the other families of Siameng. They followed the growth of the dead soul tree and returned to the human world. That scene not only shocked Chu Tianlang, but also the cultivators of the Een family. The power of the Een family's grand ancestor, Een soldier, who had returned from the sky ditch, was beyond their imagination. However, they couldn't help but feel a chill behind this powerful technique. In an instant, a dozen break-world cultivators broke out of the fruit, and the dead soul tree was still growing. The entire sky lake had broken the ice, but the lake water had turned blood red. Gurgle, gurgle. It was even to the extent that the area of water closest to the death soul tree was suffused with blood-red bubbles. The lake water looked like it was about to boil. The important matter is over. The Chu family is gone. Chu Tianlang lamented in his heart. At that moment, he didn't even have the will to continue watching. At this moment, a huge wave suddenly appeared at the bottom of the lake. Hu! Hua! The waves were 100 zhang high, sweeping up the roots of the death soul tree. Those roots were like blood snakes that were wriggling in the blood-red water. They were ferocious and terrifying, causing one to shiver. Being soldier raised an eyebrow. Looking again, the waters of the celestial lake opened, rumbling. An ancient bronze palace slowly rose from the bottom of the lake. An aura of vicissitudes of life rushed toward them. Ancient Chu Divine Palace. Chu Tianling couldn't help but shed tears of blood when he saw this, because he knew what it meant for the divine hall to float on the celestial lake. That shrine was the last foundation of the Chu family. The reason why the Chu family was able to cultivate in the Tianhu Lake was all because of that shrine. As long as the divine hall existed, the Chu family would exist. If the divine hall was destroyed, the Chu family would perish. The divine hall was not built by the Chu family. However, it was discovered by the Chu family. Back then, the ancestors of the Chu family had made a great vow in front of the divine hall. They vowed to serve the divine hall for generations. Only then could they cultivate in the divine hall. Since then, the Chu family had gradually become a dominant force. Now, the divine hall had been reduced to this state by the Yin soldier's death soul tree. It was obvious that there was nothing they could do to save the situation. Whoosh, whoosh. However, as soon as the dilapidated shrine appeared, 7 figures flew out from a corner of the space that was still relatively intact. Aside from Chu Tianlang, the Chu family had 4 break-world cultivators. The Chu family's current leader, Chu Wendao, the first elder, Chu Yusong, the second elder, Chu Wentian, and the strongest member of the younger generation, Chu Fan. 2 were in the middle stage of the break world, and 2 were in the early stage. Behind them were 3 soul burial cultivators. They were the elites of the Chu family. 1 was in the late stage, and 2 were in the middle stage. Chu Shan, who had been teleported out, had the lowest level. Because teleporting him required less power, it was guaranteed that he would be teleported to the Gu family. Chu Wendao looked like a middle-aged man. His eyes were red, and they looked like they were about to crack. Earlier, they had been trying to find a way to escape the lake, even if they had to die along with the Chu family. Unfortunately, the Death Soul tree's sealing power was too strong. After sending Chu Tianling out, they tried everything they could to break the ice. In the end, when the lake was broken, they used the divine hall to escape. Yin family. The Chu family will not live under the same sky as you. Chu Wendao gritted his teeth. Whoosh. At this time, even though he was the leader of the family, Chu Wendao could not remain calm. Calmness could not solve any problems at this time. There was no other way. They all saw Chu Tianlang being frozen in space. At this moment, they did not even know that Chu Shan had been teleported out. Therefore, they could not escape, not because they wanted to save the Chu family, but because they wanted to die together with the enemy. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. The Yin soldier kept laughing. At this moment, he did not need to use the Yin family. He could use the Dead Soul warriors. Kill. The Yin soldier waved his hand, and the Dead Soul warriors surrounded the Chu family's divine hall. Those dead souls had no souls. Their eyes were gray and white, looking sinister and terrifying. They were just puppets. They were just tools. Whoosh. Chu Tianxing was the first to run toward Chu Wendao. The broken world power swept everything. Seeing this, Chu Tianlang was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. The Yin soldier wanted the Chu family to bury the Chu family with their own hands. That was evil. It was a public outrage. But no one had the means or the ability to stop it. Kill him. It's not considered killing our ancestors, Chu Wendao said. At this moment, he showed the decisiveness of a family leader. Chu Yusong, who was next to him, went forward. Chu Tianxing was his uncle, and other than Chu Wendao, Chu Yusong was the only middle-stage broken world cultivator in the Chu family. Whoosh! There were tears in Chu Yusong's eyes, but he could not show mercy. If he did not kill Chu Tianxing would kill him. Chu Tianxing was now the Yin soldier's lackey. Chu Yusong unsheathed a sky-splitting giant axe. It was a top-notch god weapon of the broken world level. A silver light came down from the sky, heading toward Chu Tianxing. But Chu Tianxing did not do anything to block it. His body did not slow down at all. Puff! Chu Yusong's giant axe cleaved Chu Tianqing in half. Half was red, and the other half was black. That was the color of the dead soul fruit. But strangely, there was no blood on Chu Tianqing's body, and there was no spirit qi. The two have formed a strange arc and actually merged together in an instant. Chu Yusong had never expected that things would turn out this way. She couldn't help but feel shocked. Chu Tianqing's gray eyes were wide open. He formed a claw with one hand and grabbed at Chu Yusong's chest. Chu Tianqing's realm was about the same as Chu Yusong's. Theoretically, it should not have killed him. However, Chu Tianqing's throat bobbed slightly. He actually let out a strange sound. Chu Yusong's expression changed abruptly when she heard that voice. It was the secret art of the Chu family, the soul curse. It was a secret art passed down in the Chu family. It was used to clean up the family and punish unfilial descendants. Only the elders of the Chu family could use it on their juniors. When the soul curse was used, the juniors' souls would tremble for a moment as punishment. But this soul curse was enough to take Chu Yusong's life. Puff! Chu Tianqing's claw pierced Chu Yusong's heart. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.